Clear. Today's road show is at Ford Motor Company. Now filling in for Paul, here's Chris Renwick.
Well, good Friday morning to you. We have a lot to do once again this morning, and it's a very special morning here on the Paul W. Smith Show. It's the first of 4 WJR Road Shows today. We're going to be talking a lot about Ford Motor Company. We're going to talk about the other big 3 as we progress over the next few weeks, and our friends at Toyota as well. But today we want to focus a little bit on the Blue Oval and all the good things that they're doing, not only from a dealer perspective, but from a vehicle perspective. So we got a lot to do on that front, and we'll talk about that throughout the day. Thanks to our good friends over at Tasian Automotive Technologies and Lear Corporation for helping us out with this. This is very exciting. What has not been very exciting has been the developments in Ukraine overnight. We have seen now the Russians really beef up their attacks. It really started the night before when they really started to pour it on heavy. They were heavy artillery to some communities over 26 hours. And now we're getting word that Europe's largest nuclear power plant has been attacked. And Thomas, good morning to you. Sean Belegian, good morning to you. There are a lot of ramifications to this and kind of what this means in an overarching sense, because when you're dealing with the continent's largest nuclear power plant, you start wondering what the Russians want to do with it, what their plans are for it. How are they going to potentially weaponize this? And I think, again, it puts the Ukrainian people in even more danger than they maybe already were.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, Chris. I mean, as you point out, it's the largest nuclear power plant in Europe. It was built between 1984 and 1995. It's the 9th largest in the world. There are 6 reactors at this facility. It has the capacity to power 4 million homes. And last night, as we watched this thing develop, we watched this huge, reckless gunfight at this power plant, and there was concern that, there might be some radiation release. Now, thank God this morning, that looks to be okay. But the Russians have taken control of this facility, and frankly, it's pretty frightening.
It's terrifying. And I think on the heels of his meeting with Emmanuel Macron of France, where Macron came out and said, look, this is going to get worse. He basically told me that they're about to ramp this up. Some of those images last night, though, that were appearing were just downright frightening. And, you heard the Ukrainians please stop firing. This is a danger to all of us and any troops in the area. This is frightening stuff.
In the meantime, the European Union, their foreign policy chief is calling for an emergency security council meeting. And this is where I think that when we talked about the State of the Union and me personally wanting more about this situation from the president, this is kind of what I was thinking, because while Ukraine is not a European Union nation, while they're not a NATO country, the Russians are doing things that are becoming increasingly more hostile, becoming increasingly more dangerous to not only themselves, the Ukrainian people, but to greater Europe and even parts of Asia. And some of those countries are NATO allies, are European Union members. And so this feels like it had the opportunity to escalate in a much larger way really quickly. And now with something like this happening, I do wonder a bit what the mindset is of some of these European leaders on whether or not they're going to have to intervene militarily, and not just in aid, not just in weaponry, but having to step in and provide assistance, because there's no doubt that the Ukrainians are overmatched here. There's no doubt that the Russians are overwhelming. And so my fear now is that this is escalating to where other countries are going to need to intervene.
Well, it's a terrifying thought, and I mean, the reverberations are being felt already throughout Europe. I mean, obviously, Poland is worried about the flank. You've heard the comments about Finland, and I think the Finns don't forget what happened in 1939 with the Winter War, and that's what gave us that term, the Molotov cocktail. Because as we talk about the Russian propaganda now, they told the world that they were dropping humanitarian bread baskets to the Finns as they were dropping bombs on them. So the Finns came up with a drink, quote unquote, to feed the Russians back, and that's what became the Molotov cocktail. So you've heard Finland come out and say, "Yeah, we remember this, and maybe we should think about NATO right now." And what's that going to do to Putin? Because allegedly, that is what started all this. Is his fear that, hey, wait a second, you guys aren't going to be on my front porch in Ukraine, or back porch as it were. Perhaps Finland's the front porch. So. You're absolutely right. The reverberations are being felt all over Europe right now.
And I'm curious to know: do you feel like these countries are becoming more fearful that they're going to have to get involved, especially those kind of outside maybe the western border of Ukraine, which are NATO allies?
Oh, I think they're definitely very concerned. We see President Macron, for example, constantly trying to stay in touch, be in touch with Putin. I think there's great concern here.
Broker an end to this thing, even.
Yes. I think these countries today are very concerned. I'm sure there are a lot of backroom meetings trying to figure out exactly what's the right thing to do.
And of course, oil has been central to this whole storyline, and in particular, how that could impact the import exports of China. I mean, we've seen now countries, businesses levy sanctions on Russia and their oil production. Now you've got one of the country's largest oil giants calling for an end to this conflict. It's the second largest oil firm in Russia. And they say, quote, "The board of directors expresses herewith its deepest concerns about the tragic events in Ukraine. Calling for the soonest termination of the armed conflict, we express our sincere empathy for all victims who are affected by this tragedy." And so this is, you talk about the oligarchs, you talk about the people, the rich people who run the scene or the country behind the scenes. This, you could consider one of these folks that this is a huge company, a huge oil producer, and they're saying, look, we need to stop this, because what's going to happen? It's going to hurt their pocketbooks,
right?
And
because
they don't
needs to be stopped,
and
yes.
They don't want any of that to happen any more than it already is. Lots to do this morning. Obviously, huge developments in Ukraine. We'll keep you up to date on that. In the meantime, we've got Paul W. Smith did a wonderful interview that I'm going to play for you here coming up at 6:19. It's for Opportunity Detroit. Airs 1:00 Sunday afternoon right here on WJR. We'll do that at 6:19. Chris Renwick in this morning for Paul W. Smith right here on WJR.
Stacking Benjamins with Joe.
Hey, Chris, out of this 30, give me that Metro Cars, please.
Great financial insight. It's
Thank
laid
you.
back with humor too.
Joe and his gang.
Are you going to intro this tape, or you just want me to go to a
So
cold?
many people where layaway didn't.
Don't tell my
You
daughter.
could just
And
go
what
to
do you
it.
think?
Her birthday
Just
cake
go to
the
a
other
call.
day online.
Okay,
I bought the job, and they asked me if I want to do 4 payments.
Chris did a nice promote there.
Did you
So
tell your
we're good.
daughter you bought her cake, though?
The birthday has not arrived yet, nor is the cake.
I realized I didn't have my clock open.
Stacking
Here comes
Benjamins.
Metro.
Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Today's show is brought to you in part by the original and official Metro Cars. Metro Cars is the official transportation provider of WJR and has provided clean, safe, reliable service throughout Michigan for over 30 years. For Metro Airport transportation, weddings, or any other trips, make sure your car says Metro Cars right there on the side. Visit them at metrocars.com today.
Got the winter blues? Riverbank Theater has the solution. Anita Newby stars in Lady Day at Emerson's Bar and Grill, a theatrical recap of the life of Billie Holiday. March 4th through April 3rd in Marine
Tammy,
City.
good morning.
Theater.com.
Tammy says good morning to Sean specifically.
Hi.
Barry
It's
Johnson
the
has
Sean
mentioned
fan club.
same things
Good
that excite you
morning.
and me.
We're all parts of.
Barry, it's
Speaking of the Sean
Motivation.
fan club,
Yeah.
When your
Sean,
car door closes just right.
what happened to my
Thank Barry
Spartans
Johnson.
last night?
Oh, was
You
that
even have a job
ugly?
in the American
Oh,
auto
come on.
industry.
That
was
was
so
Barry
ugly.
Johnson.
What is
Barry
wrong?
Johnson literally wrote
You know,
the
the scariest
introducing
thing, Ann,
statistics
is
and quality
I
standards
think
to the
everybody
American
kind of
automobile
realizes
industry.
they don't have any bigs up
Statistics
front.
made our cars
And that guy that was
world-class.
going off early
What he did
averages
for our
like 2
automobiles,
points a
he'll
game.
do for our government.
I mean,
What?
they're
And you
just
really
attacking
think that
Michigan
the
State where it
profession, we're
hurts right now.
desperately in need of
Well,
quality.
if they would have made their free throws
Small
too.
towns across
Yeah,
Michigan are being
that just
ignored.
I mean, it was
Nursing
everything.
home
It was
deaths,
free throws. It
cops,
was turnovers.
billions in unemployment fraud.
they've been
Just
so bad
roads
defensively.
still
3 of
broke.
their last 4 games,
I
they've
brought
given up
quality to
over 80
61
points.
countries.
It's boy, it's been
You
hard
Let's
to
kidding?
do it
watch.
here at home.
Perry Johnson, quality guru.
Do you think
Cobb
they
looks
beat-
so
he
he
looks-
looks
Paid
looks
for by
so
Perry
beat,
Johnson
doesn't he?
together.
It's
Yeah,
it's
it's
sad.
kind of
Hi, Matt Darko here
Yeah.
with
Yeah,
Go Round
stressed out.
Ford. Proud
What
to be
about
your number
Maryland?
one
Can they
Ford
beat
dealer in
Maryland
America.
at home at Tulsa?
Boy, they should.
Let's see, if something costs
They
less,
should.
the people are happier
You know, and then
with
the
it. That
tournament,
sounds
maybe
like
you
something
just
to
look
look
at it
into,
as a
and
new
that's
season,
Medishare.
and you know,
We've
hey,
heard
let's have
switching
some
to
fun with it.
Medishare
You
to pay
know,
for healthcare can save the
that
typical
boy,
family
it was
$500 a month, and that's huge.
Cringy.
It's also true that people
Cringy,
are way more satisfied.
Yeah.
I don't know what
after
else is
making the
supposed to
switch,
do
too.
though. I
The
mean,
customer satisfaction rate
it's a
for
personnel
Medishare is
problem.
double.
It
no,
is.
it is a
typical
personnel
health
problem.
insurance
He's
plan.
done
Medishare
everything
works.
he
It's been around
can.
for
I
more
mean,
than a
he's
quarter
He's got as
century, and
much
members
out
have
of this
shared
team
more
as
than
he could. He
$3
really did.
yeah, and I mean, he's
billion
dealt with
of
them
each other's
internally.
bills.
He's
People
called them
love
out
having
publicly.
telehealth and a huge
You know, and you
nationwide
would think
PPO
that something
network.
like
So
that would resonate.
yeah,
but
you
nothing
can
is
save a
stuck.
ton and
I mean,
like
they
it
just
better.
kind of go out and go
Imagine
through
being
the motions.
happy
And
with how you're
like
taking
the
care
other
of your
day,
health
was it
care.
against
So if
Michigan
you're
where he said,
self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want
you
to
know,
play and you're happy with,
we
you can
planned to
call
double
right now
Hunter
and get a price
Dickinson
within
in the
2
second
minutes.
half, and they
Very,
just
very
didn't.
smart use of 2
Yeah.
minutes. Here's
Like,
the number you need.
they had a plan, and then they just
855-51
didn't do it
Bible.
on the
That's
floor.
855-51 Bible.
You know, that's tough. I
855-51
don't know how you
Bible.
deal
What
with
are the
that.
5 personal finance topics that matter most today? For the answer to this and more, tune to The Truth About Your Future with best-selling author and internationally recognized financial advisor Rick Edelman. Sunday mornings at 8 on 760 WJR.
WJR Traffic and Weather First.
This report is sponsored by Discover. If you're a valued customer, you deserve a simple gesture of appreciation from your credit card company. And that's why Discover matches all of the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year. Discover. Exceptionally common sense. Learn more at discover.com/match. Limitations apply.
In Romulus, construction has 2 lanes closed on I-275 northbound between Eureka and M14. And in Wayne, the left lane is closed on I-275 southbound between M14 and US 12 due to construction. That construction is scheduled through March 7th. In Novi, I expect heavier traffic this afternoon around the Suburban Collection Showplace as the golf show opens at 2 p.m. Now, WJR weather first from the Weather Channel. Here's your forecast.
Unseasonably warm weather poised to get in here over the upcoming weekend. High usually should be 41 this time of year. Pretty close to that today. Some clouds this morning. A little more cloud this afternoon, 42. Tonight, cloudy, 29. Saturday, clouds give way to sunshine and milder near 60. Sunday, partly cloudy and windy, 63. Colder Monday. From our Weather Channel, I'm meteorologist Ray Stajic on News Talk 760 WJR.
Welcome back to the WJR Road Show with Paul W. Smith. Presented by Tajin Automotive and Lear. Today's Road Show is at Ford Motor Company.
Happy to welcome in a lecturer at the Ross School of Business, where he leads a capstone program where organizations engage a team of undergrad student consultants to advise on a pressing strategic issue. He's also the faculty director of the Detroit Neighborhood Entrepreneurs Projects, plus Impact Studio for local business, where student interns help Detroit-based small businesses implement projects related to digital marketing, e-commerce, procurement, customer relationships, and access to capital. And he is also a real estate investor who has renovated and sold a dozen houses in the Detroit market. And he is the lead author of Good Deeds, an analysis of the Rehabbed and Ready program. Chris Muller, or is it Chris Mueller?
It is Chris Mueller. Thank you, Paul.
So this is all good news. We're hearing so many great things about Rehabbed and Ready. And from your perspective, which is very special because you've done it, you've rehabbed. You've sold a dozen rehabbed houses in the city of Detroit. Give us your story. Tell me about yourself and your background.
Well, I graduated from the University of Michigan with an MBA and a dual degree in public policy, and have been really interested at this intersection of how how markets work and how markets can work to support our society, and what happens when those markets fail, and the impact that that has on the society. And so how we balance market-driven interventions and when we need interventions to help get the market moving again. And so after I graduated, I did a series of consulting, largely around entrepreneurship and those kinds of innovation-driven opportunities within the nonprofit sector, within the social sector. And that led me into the opportunity to eventually start a social enterprise that you just described, trying to work on concentrated investments into neighborhoods in renovating houses that would help reestablish markets in those neighborhoods. And all that in conjunction with being able to teach at U of M led me to the opportunity to write this study about what Rehabbed and Ready has been doing, and try to share the good news that came out of the report.
You know, I don't, maybe people, many younger people don't understand when I say Catch-22. That film was a long time ago. That book was a long time. You do understand,
it was even earlier than that, yes.
All right. Well, yes, earlier than that. But it's been kind of a Catch-22 in the city of Detroit, the problem with Detroit's residential real estate market. And you talk about it in Chapter 1, the inability to appraise the value of move-in ready homes has crippled the mortgage market. They need comps. It's pretty definite. They need comparisons. And there haven't been any comps or comparisons available in the city of Detroit for a long time.
Right. Yeah. So basic market, what an efficient market means is when there are buyers competing for something. So if we go to Eastern Market, we can determine that a fair price for a pizza is maybe $14 because there's lots of people available who are willing to pay $14 for that pizza. And if they're not, then they'll go a few stalls down and they'll buy one for $12 and it'll establish that's the price. But in the mortgage market, banks determine what the value of a house is that they're willing to give a loan towards by comparing it to other houses, similar houses in the neighborhood. And what the study shows is we took a look at the Bagley neighborhood, and in 2005, if you wanted to buy a 3-bedroom, 1.5-bathroom colonial house, there were plenty of comparables that had sold in kind of the $120,000, $130,000, $140,000 range. And so it was relatively easy to establish that something in the price range would be fair market value for that home. Banks would be willing to give a mortgage. All is good. A few years later, 2008, what we saw is there were still a couple of those fully renovated move-in ready houses selling in kind of the 120, 130 range. But there were also we're starting to see a lot more houses that start to hit the market selling in kind of the $15,000 to $20,000 range. And that's that flood of foreclosures that we've heard so much about, and that story that we're familiar with. But by 2010, there are no fully renovated houses on the market. There are only distressed houses sold on the market, all bought with cash. And so there is no comparable for a bank to understand how to value a fully renovated move-in ready house, and we see the collapse of the mortgage market. And the significance of that is because it pulls, most of us can afford to buy a pizza with the cash that we have on hand. Most of us cannot afford to buy a house with what we have in our savings accounts. We're dependent upon having banks being willing to give loans in order for there to be competition for those houses. So when the mortgage industry collapses, it pulls all the buyers out of the market. And what that meant is that not only did Detroit have an influx of foreclosures like we saw throughout the country, but we also saw the buyers get pulled out of the market. So even when the foreclosures make their way through the market and that supply of distressed houses stabilizes, we still have a demand problem, because without the presence of mortgage-backed buyers, there's no competition for houses. And so the prices in Detroit, to your Catch-22, have stayed low longer, and the recovery has been slower because we had to be able to restart the mortgage engine and do that by rebuilding comparable sales comps of fully renovated houses.
And this is why, Chris, that it seems at least that Detroit has taken longer to recover than other cities?
It is, because everywhere else we had a supply issue, a supply of foreclosed houses, but within a year or two, those largely moved their way through the market. And in other cities where we saw a decline in values of maybe 10 or 15%, within a couple of years that had stabilized and recovered. But here in Detroit, because the demand issue of buyers being able to find access to mortgages and banks having confidence to lend in Detroit's neighborhoods, that's what's kept the prices lower.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Paul.
Chris Mueller, lead author of Good Deeds, University of Michigan. As we continue on the Paul W. Smith Show at WJR. Paul W. here. Everyone has heard about the PPP program and the other types of COVID relief from last year.
Interesting.
But did you know there's one grant it's not too late to get? It's called the Employee Retention Tax Credit, ERC for short. ERC is like a rebate from the government to reimburse business owners for some of their payroll costs during the pandemic. Eligible business owners can get up to $26,000 per employee. This money doesn't have to be paid back. There's no rule on how it's
going to be a very nice,
paid.
unusually
You own a
warm
business with
weekend.
at least 5 W-2
What are you guys going to
employees.
do?
I recommend you call our
60,
friends
right?
at AR Law to see if you qualify. That's AR Law.
I've got to
AR
go.
Law. Their number is 800-513.
Probably end up going to Topgolf actually on Saturday.
5315.
Okay.
The ERC
And
program.
then I've got a dinner to attend.
Someone told you that you don't qualify,
And
but that you don't get much back. You should
that's
still
my
call.
Saturday.
AR Law. AYAR.
I'm going to probably sleep
800-513.
from the time we get off the air today till
Monday
tomorrow at about
As an
8
organ
o'clock in the
donor,
morning, I think.
your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on.
I have hockey all day tomorrow.
You could save up to 8
It's
lives with
a
your
high
gifts.
school playoff, so I have
heart
hockey all day
could keep
tomorrow,
beating. Your
and
kidneys
Sunday we're
could
just
keep
having a
filtering.
nice family day.
And your intestines
Nice.
keep on
I
digesting
think there's an
others.
even money chance
That's not all.
I'm going to
You
be
can
out on
improve the
the
lives of
smoker.
50 more people
So
as an
Yeah.
eye and tissue
the
donor.
smart money's going to bet on
Restoring
that.
sight
And what's it going to
and
be?
health.
You know, I think I'm just going to do
And you're
ribs.
not just helping
I
out
think
the
I'm just
person
gonna do
receiving
ribs.
the
That
transplant.
sounds good.
You're touching whole
That
You ever
sounds
do
like-
burnt ends?
Yes.
Register in minutes. Just go to
So here's a question
organdonor.gov.
for both of you.
You'll be happy
At
you
this
did.
time of year,
Just maybe,
do either one
Someone
of you
else
ever
would be
wash
happy
out your
to.
garage floor?
sign up today. Go to
That is more April.
organdonor.gov.
That is
It
April
saves
for us.
lives.
Absolutely.
When you
That-
mean
US
wash, you
Department
mean
of
like
Health
how do you
and
mean
Services,
wash?
Health
Like I did it
Resources
last
and Services
weekend.
Administration.
You go, you get the hose,
The Paul
connect
W.
it
Smith Show's
to
weekly
the-
dealer
in this-
download
somewhere
is
inside
powered
the
by
house.
Bill Brown Ford.
In a signal
Take
of
it
Ford
out,
Motor
and you
Company's
literally
commitment to
wash out the garage
sustainability and
floor of all
environmental
that
stewardship, Ford Louisville
winter.
Assembly Plant has been presented the 2021 Pollution
so I
Prevention Award
usually-
by the U.S. Environmental Protection
I
Agency.
usually give it a
During
good
the first year of
sweeping.
implementation, the Louisville Assembly Plant
But I've never
recognized
really
for its
thought
leadership
about
and commitment reduced more than
cleaning
5 million gallons of city water
my
use,
garage
which
floor like
equates
that.
to over 22 gallons per vehicle.
We
and
have
Now I'm
one
gonna
of our,
actually.
approximately
we have one of our
$50,000.
hoses right
Ford
next
is
to the
proud to match
garage,
our
so and that's
sustainability
a
ambition
must.
with bold,
There's just
transformative
so much
action that
that
aims to help
collects in
protect
there,
our
and
communities as well
especially
as our
where
planet,
the
said
snow
Bob
blower
Holycross,
is.
Vice President,
It's just
Environmental and Safety
there,
Engineering.
all over the floor. So I love to I just clear everything. I do the sweep first, Chris. I tell the kids, I'll give you $10 if you clear the
For more
stuff off the
details, call
ground.
734-399-4244 or visit
spray it.
BillBrownFord.com.
My kids make fun of me. They think it's hilarious that I do this. I just wondered if other people did it.
What are your
how to drive a car. He
so
fed everyone on the block,
my
but
garage
never shared
is
his
I have
secret
finished walls in
recipes.
my garage.
And
So
every
they're-
time he tell a
they're
story,
drywall.
he owned the room. But now more than ever,
So how
he
do you
make it
keep
alone.
how do you
Today,
keep the
older
water
adults and
away
their loved
from
ones
like
are
the
struggling
walls?
to connect in a time when connection has never been
You just
more.
don't really go over there?
There is something we can
You
do.
don't get too
Embrace
close.
our older loved ones.
Put a little
through
bit of
Story
water
Will
on the
Connect.
bottom.
With Story
I
Will
have
Connect,
little curves,
you can honor
like
scenes
in my
remotely
garage.
with
I
an
kid you
interview
not.
about their life.
Just little.
Every interview
like
will
little,
be
like-
archived at the Library of
Yeah,
Congress.
it doesn't.
Being
It
part of
doesn't go up
American
against the
history,
wall, so
so
it works
that
out
years
really
from now,
well.
future
that's
generations
really
can
that's-
listen in.
Yeah.
All right, Grandpa.
That's a step above right there, Sean.
Just 3 words, sweetheart. Live with courage.
The man that had the best stories still has plenty of stories to tell.
Got a little
So connect virtually and share the conversation of a lifetime at StoryCorpsConnect.org/AARP. Connect, honor, share. StoryCorps Connect. A message from AARP, StoryCorps, and the Ad Council.
I'm Chris Foster.
I'll be right back.
A nuclear plant shelled by the Russian military in Ukraine. 3 Ukrainian troops are reported killed in that attack.
President Biden was concerned enough to get on the phone with President Zelensky last night. The International Atomic Energy Agency says right now they have not seen any noticeable increase in radiation levels in the area.
Fox's Jonathan Hunt. President Biden's Supreme Court nominee has been making the rounds on Capitol Hill.
Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson met with Nebraska Republican Ben Sass and Minnesota Democrat Amy Klobuchar. Klobuchar said she liked that Jackson had been a public defender and has family in law enforcement.
And I also love that she's has Paul Ryan as a family member and he can vouch for her. So I don't know what else we need to know, really.
Former House Speaker Paul Ryan's sister-in-law is married to Jackson's brother-in-law.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal. Americans listening to Fox News.
WJR Traffic and Weather First.
This report is sponsored by Discover. If you're a valued customer, you deserve a simple gesture of appreciation from your credit card company. And that's why Discover matches all of the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year. Discover. Exceptionally common sense. Learn more at discover.com/match. Limitations apply.
In Detroit, trucks can expect delays up to 30 minutes at the Ambassador Bridge. In Oakland, the left lane is closed on I-75 southbound between 696 and 14 Mile. You can expect heavier traffic around the TCF Center in Detroit starting at noon today as Autorama opens. Now, WJR weather first from the Weather Channel. Expect a high of 39 degrees today. Right now, it's clear and 21 degrees. I'm Dave Rieger, WJR Traffic and Weather First.
The DISC Institute has helped thousands of people from all walks of life, including Joe Gannon.
I first met him years ago when he came on the air as an advertiser, and he said, "Joe, I know you played pro hockey. There must be something wrong with you." And I said, "No, there isn't, Doc. I don't have a thing wrong with me."
Joe, I couldn't believe it when you called me and told me you could barely walk.
I went out after the show yesterday.
Back or something,
and man, it's no joke. The roads are a mess. I mean, they're horrific.
Well, after
these potholes, they are really bad this year.
So where we were talking about potholes yesterday in
you think what we did
kind of like the Livonia area?
Yeah, 8 Mile.
We see miracles every day.
We're talking 8 Mile. They finally filled in these wild potholes on Farmington Road between 8 Mile and 6 Mile, and they were in the right lane. You could drive in that lane.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And now the way they filled it in, though,
has contributed over
it's just like driving down a bumpy road.
Education.
You know,
Michigan Lottery for fun. For
they just like pulled up,
for 50 years.
threw the stuff in there, didn't even smooth it. You know what I mean?
It's like the WJR.
You guys,
100
this
years.
isn't working.
You buy Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan.
This isn't sustainable.
A true legend on February 22nd.
It is not.
We got a ton of calls
Michigan
about
broadcaster
that, by the way,
since 1969.
Yes.
That whole stretch from like 8 Mile and Novi Road all the way down to Farmington,
for the Detroit Lions.
Especially that area near Meadowbrook, it's a disaster. Like, I'm not joking. We all drive way out of our way to avoid that. I'll cut through that little neighborhood right next to Meadowbrook.
And really looking forward to the
You avoid it like a plague.
We'll
Giant
cover the fun
holes.
things too, and we'll cover entertainment.
Frank was always fun, sometimes controversial.
Rush Limbaugh joining us this morning on the Frank Beckman Show. Once
It's the obnoxious Rush Limbaugh,
the obnoxious anti-environmentalist,
who happened to be right,
but always the archetype in broadcast professionalism. Frank Beckman, a true great voice of the Great Lakes.
WJR 100 is brought to you.
That's nice. I hadn't heard that one.
Yeah.
Michigan. To see more,
hard to hear Frank's voice, though.
Is that Cam does a great job with those.
WJR.com
But it makes me sad to hear Frank's voice.
WJR 100.
I know.
Welcome back to the WJR Road Show with Paul W. Smith. Presented by Tajin Automotive and Lear. Today's Road Show is at Ford Motor Company. Once again substituting for Paul W. Smith, Here's Chris Renwick.
Very excited to be with you and talking about the Blue Oval today. Coming up at 6:49, we're going to talk to Michael Sprague. He's the North America Director of Lincoln. Lincoln, one of those iconic brands, celebrating a huge milestone anniversary. So we'll talk about that coming up at 6:49. In the meantime, what happened last night? What was that? And it's not just Michigan State, it's Michigan. What kind of college basketball do we have in this area? Major college basketball. We got a couple of teams that are, they're struggling. They're struggling. Is that nice? Can I put it that way?
Nice word, yes.
Yeah.
Sean, they're struggling.
Yeah, that was an ugly watch to start out of the gate last night. I think, one of the things that you have to remember right now with what's going on with Michigan State, and of course, Coach Izzo will be on the show later on this morning, about 8:35 with Steve Courtney, is defensively, they're just not playing well right now. I mean, I think Spartan fans will know, and that they have allowed over 80 or more points in 3 of their last 4 games. That is not Spartan basketball. That is not Tom Izzo basketball.
That's mind-blowing.
It really is. It's tough to, and you know what? Both Chris and Ann, you're watching teams go after the Spartans where they're weak. I mean, case in point, last night, you have a player for Ohio State that comes into the game averaging 2 points a game. 2 points a game. But because the Michigan State bigs have been struggling, a guy by the name of Joey Brunk, who, did I mention he's averaging 2 points a game, goes off for 18 points. And I mean, just looks like all conference in the process. So right now it's tough, and the Spartans are going to have to find a way to shake off this malaise, if you will, because the tournament's going to be here quick, fast, in a hurry.
Well, they've lost 7 of their last 9. And, that's not an Izzo trait, especially at this time of year. This is usually when things start to ramp up for Michigan State. This is usually when this team kicks it into a different gear, even if they've struggled during the regular season. Once you hit, the mid-February mark, it always seems like it's a different mindset in East Lansing, and Tom Izzo does something different with these guys, and all of a sudden they're playing a different brand of basketball because they know that everything is a do or die going forward, and they're getting into the tournament, and it's one and done. You got to make the most of your chances. And so it just seems like this year is different. Like, and you saw Izzo last night clenching his fists and, head in the hands. And he just looks like somebody who has no answers. He looks like somebody who has tried everything. And look, as an accomplished coach, Tom Izzo's got a bag of, I don't want to call them tricks, but he's got his repertoire of things that he can do to motivate these young men. And some of that is calling players out internally, not having press conferences for the first time in his career a few weeks ago because of the way they played, or calling them out publicly and saying, look, we're not good. We got to do something different. We have no leadership from our upperclassmen. It feels like he's emptied that bag of tricks. It feels like he's exhausted every option, and they're just the players just don't seem to be responding.
There's a level of frustration that I've seen in Coach Izzo that I haven't seen before, and I don't think I'm being dramatic when I say that. There's you can tell there's a level of frustration right now. Now, again, we're not doing this fair if we don't point out, there have been some low points and some teams that, I remember, was it 2005, the Paul Davis group, where, everybody said, oh, what a complete letdown. And then, bam, they are back in the Final Four again. That was the one that really made me raise my eyes. But, for the amount of times that we talk about that, the amount of times that it happened, those aren't equal numbers. It isn't just going to happen. I think there are some personnel issues with this team. And Chris, to use your term, Coach Izzo is going to have to go deep into that bag of tricks to find the spark to get this team going.
Now, to be fair, the season isn't over, right? You mentioned it. It's possible that something happens here and Izzo goes Izzo, and this team ends up in a a Sweet 16 type of scenario. I think that's the best case scenario now for this team. I'd be a win in my mind. And so, yeah, I think he's going to have to dig deep and try to figure out what's wrong. And I think the team as a whole, they're going to have to buy in. I don't know if it's a buy-in issue, but they haven't quite responded the way Izzo liked. And I turned that game on. I was a couple of minutes late to that game, literally a couple of minutes late.
Yes.
And I turned it on. It was 13-0. And I'm like,
Uh-oh.
oh boy.
And when you get behind at the beginning like that, the entire game is spent trying to catch up.
Yeah, you're climbing out of a hole. You're climbing out of a huge hole, right. and the guy in the stand hasn't even put mustard on his hot dog yet. You know what I mean? Like it was just right out of the gate. It was trouble for the Spartans, and they lose last night in Columbus to Ohio State. In the meantime, there isn't a whole lot better to say about the Wolverines. They get toasted by 11 against Iowa last night at Chrysler, and you know what it felt like, Sean? It felt like when Michigan State beat Purdue, big high, and then they take on Michigan at home or at Chrysler, big letdown. Kind of felt the same way for the Wolverines. Big win against your rival in Michigan State. They're not at the level of Purdue, obviously, this year. But you beat your rival. Hunter Dickinson has a great game. He goes off and is dominant. And then Iowa comes in, and they just – they were an uninspired group last night, which is unfortunate because it was senior night. And they just never really kind of found their footing, it seemed like.
No, you know what? It was eerily similar because, I think a lot of Spartan fans, you kind of had that, bitter beer face, when you were watching that first half, you talked about.
How did we lose to these guys?
Well, and you got down so much so fast that I'm going to go see what Michigan's doing. So you turn that channel and you're like, ugh, maybe there's some hockey on. Cause it really was, it was too ugly first halves. There's no doubt about it. Chris, we talked about it yesterday. You flip a coin with Iowa. You don't know what Iowa you're going to get, honestly. Mm-hmm. And I think they showed everybody in the first half in particular that this was going to be the good Iowa. And, you're sitting there going, they might go for 100 tonight.
Yes.
They were just flying offensively. And then bad Iowa showed up in the second half. You never know what you're going to get. But overall, I think Iowa could be a dangerous team come tournament time because of that. They've shown these moments of greatness, and Michigan State both trying to find themselves.
Yeah. And Iowa was good last night. Michigan just wasn't, and that's been kind of their modus operandi all year. They just haven't found it. In the meantime, we still have no baseball, Sean. We have no news on the baseball front. No negotiations are happening. Nobody's talking. Apparently nobody likes the sport anymore. And so we've got no new developments on that. We've been watching it. We've been tracking it. We got nothing to report. I wish there was something. I feel like we've talked about this extensively. This is a PR nightmare. This is an
especially
absolute
with the
nightmare.
weather warming up. I don't know about you, Chris. The thought of going down to the park with a dog and your
terrible.
Favorite beverage in the other hand is just so enticing right now.
It's the WJR Road Show featuring Ford Motor Company today, brought to you by Lear Tasian Automotive Technologies. We're happy to have you with us. We're going to talk about Lincoln coming up next. It's a legacy brand, and it's one of the jewels of the Blue Oval. We'll talk about that coming up next right here on the Paul W. Smith Show on WJR. Don't go anywhere.
It's a time of tremendous uncertainty for everyone. But
Hey, Chris.
Cancer.
Out of this, would you give me that Automotive Views billboard, please? It's a 30.
Million people
Yep, I got it.
diagnosed this year alone, and it's vital to know your risks and learn ways to prevent it. It's also critical for cancer patients to protect themselves from all viruses. No Stomach for Cancer encourages you to listen to medical experts to understand your risks. Find out more about COVID-19 at cancer.gov and learn more about your risks for stomach cancer at nostomachforcancer.org.
6:44 this morning on the Paul W. Smith Show, and it's Automotive Views time with Jamie Butters, Executive Director of Automotive News, and presented by Yazaki, fully connected vehicle electrification.
We often say that electric vehicles are going to reshape the auto industry. We can see.
So do we think Michigan State, I think, Sean, you think, do we think Michigan State can beat Maryland on Sunday? You think yes, right, Chuck?
Yeah, they should beat them. Yeah.
So is
they
this
should
an
win that.
issue where the players aren't playing hard enough for Tom, or they're at maybe the best that they can play?
I think that water found its level with this team, and I really do. They got off to such a great start, and it was so surprising because the expectations really weren't high this year. And then, unfortunately, once water started to find its level, you see the guys kind of hanging their heads a little bit. And I think at this point in the season, I think they realize, maybe what the roster shortcomings are. If there's a big guy that can go to the basket, they're dead. There's nobody that can guard them. There's nobody. You saw it with the Michigan game. You saw it last night. And I think now teams know, all right, let's get our big guy, the big, to attack Michigan State, and there's nobody that can take them. And so any team with a even competent big guy is going to take advantage of Michigan State.
My thing is, I mean, there are players on this roster that I like. Like Max Christie is a guy that I feel like can shoot the ball, and like it just seems like nobody wants to shoot the rock.
Yeah.
Like nobody wants to take the shot. Everybody's passing up a lane, or everybody's passing up the open look, and
They're missing a lot of their shots.
and they're
too,
missing
though.
a lot of them. The ones that they do take, they're missing. So
Yeah.
it seems like a game of hot potato. Like nobody wants to take the shot. And look, when you've lost 7-9, your coach is obviously frustrated publicly. You could be overthinking things a little bit. I do believe this roster has talent. But for whatever reason, they just it's like Michigan. Like Michigan's got a ton of talent, and nothing has materialized.
Yeah.
So both these teams will be in the tournament, you think?
State, I think, is.
Michigan is to be determined.
Yeah.
Chris, would you agree?
Yeah.
I think they have to do a little work on their resume. Michigan State will be in.
You gotta win. I mean, you gotta win Sunday. You have to.
Yeah.
You have to. And that's look. You just saw what Michigan State ran into a buzzsaw down there at Value City Pavilion or whatever they call it. So that's a tough place to play, and they're a pretty good team. So they got a tall task in front of them. But how about this? Both in Michigan, or both for Michigan basketball and Michigan football, their seasons then hinged on the last game of the season against Ohio State.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
How about that?
Yeah.
And how far do you think they'll make it once they're in the tournament?
Michigan?
Both teams.
I wouldn't expect Michigan State to get out of the first weekend.
Sean, that's terrible.
I wouldn't say that. It wouldn't be a shock. It depends, obviously, who they end up playing, but maybe a win.
Yeah, I would say that if you get to the second game, like if you get to the round of 32,
I can't imagine them getting out of that first weekend though.
That's how I feel about
win.
Michigan. That's how I feel about Michigan. I don't see how they get out of the first weekend, especially if they have to beat Ohio State and probably piece together a win or two in the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah,
I mean, I feel like you'll have kind of used the
low 60s. And as we get to
Monday, playing with house money at that point.
For the Weather Channel.
If Tom makes a run this year, I will convince myself that he is nothing but a witch.
Welcome back to the WJR Road Show with Paul W. Smith, presented by Tajin Automotive and Lear. Today's road show is at Ford Motor Company. Once again in for Paul, here's Chris Renwick.
Good to have you with us for our first of many multi-week WJR Road shows. Today we're taking a look at the Blue Oval for the Ford Motor Company, sponsored by our good friends Lear Corporation and Tajin Automotive Technologies. And one of the many companies that are in the fold with Ford is Lincoln. And celebrating a really big milestone this year. Michael Sprague, the North American Director of Lincoln, joins us this morning on the Paul W. Smith Show. Michael, nice to have you with us.
Be here, and also I understand a congratulations to WJR for the 100th anniversary of the station there as well.
Yes, thank you, and happy birthday to you, because you are also celebrating 100 years at Lincoln. What does that? What do you think that signifies? That you've been around for 100 years. and obviously people are into the Lincoln product. So what does that tell you?
Yeah, exactly. Well, first, as you know, Lincoln is Ford Motor Company's luxury brand, and the design and innovation has shaped industry, culture, and conversation through the last 100 years. I mean, we've weathered wars, depressions, pandemics, and much more because we were innovative, resilient, and really endured the test of time. So it's a testament to all of the great people that have been working on this brand for the last 100 years.
So talk to me about what you got planned for this year. Obviously, with it being such a milestone, I can't imagine you just let it go unnoticed.
No, exactly. And back on February 4th, which was the anniversary of when Henry Ford purchased the Lincoln brand from Henry Leland, we did a lot of social and digital activations. We had a beautiful brand video that really celebrated the last 100 years, but also gave a nod to the future of where the brand is going. And if you look at the last 100 years, it all revolved around ICE engines. And back in June of last year, we came out and kind of gave a signal to what the future is for the Lincoln brand. And it all revolves around electrification. Mm-hmm. And so first 100 years, ICE, next 100 years, electrification, and kind of always on connected vehicles. It's going to be a really exciting period.
It is exciting. And I mean, you look at the global sales, it's up. And with Lincoln, you go into a Lincoln and you're like, oh, this is nice. Oh, and this is nice. Oh, and this over here is great. Wow, this is awesome. What is it in the design process? What is it from kind of the ground up? What is the approach that you take to designing, manufacturing these wonderful vehicles?
Well, of course, first we always keep our customers in mind and work with them to understand what they're looking for in a luxury vehicle. And we have an incredible team of designers that are really in tune with the trends in the industries, not just in automotive, but in the luxury space. And we try to incorporate that into our vehicles. So beautiful design, innovative technologies, of course, all of the great safety features that consumers come to expect. But really, at the end of the day, we're trying to create kind of sanctuary-like interiors for our vehicles because we know our luxury clients, they need more time. They value kind of that quiet experience that they have in our vehicles. And so it's just been phenomenal working with our team, particularly as, again, we look towards the next 100 years and what's going to happen.
Nothing defined luxury in my mind, especially when you're dealing with the SUV market in the Navigator. I mean, that car, when it was introduced in 98 and now in its fourth edition, essentially, how much that car has changed and improved. And it's like a wine. It's just gotten better and better over time. Talk to me about the new Navigator. I got to imagine you guys are very excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so the 22 model year is just now being released from our great team down in Kentucky. And so it really refines the brand's signature exterior and interior design elements. It's really a true sanctuary on the road. And as you mentioned, it's been around since 1998. It's the flagship for the brand. And it attracts younger customers more and more every day. People are looking at this and saying, I love what this brand stands for. I love what the Navigator stands for, and I want to be a part of this brand.
With the pandemic, so much has changed, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know if this is all changed because of the pandemic, but you've got a new piece of technology that you're going to be able to deliver to people. It's the virtual showcase walkarounds. It's a completely remote sales delivery experience. You're going to be able to shop Lincoln across all of their models. And I think this is kind of, you talked about younger people being involved in liking the Navigator. This seems to maybe be the way that, are we going to buy cars in the future?
Yeah. So when COVID hit back in March of 2020, we all kind of took a step back and said, customers are going to want to shop differently. And our retailers did a phenomenal job of pivoting and working with them. We were able to create a virtual showroom experience. And so, yes, people can go online, schedule an appointment, and then have a virtual walk around with a product specialist. So if you're still a little bit uneasy about going into one of our dealers, you can schedule that appointment. And then if you're interested in then pursuing a purchase of the vehicle, our retailers will work with you so that you never have to have an in-person experience. We will do everything online and ultimately deliver the vehicle to your home or office or wherever you want to be, because that's really what we're trying to do, is create effortless experiences for our clients on their terms.
Well, it's a luxury line, it's a luxury vehicles, and it's a luxury buying experience too. I think that completely can define the way you do business, and I think people love that. I certainly think it's fantastic. In the meantime, you and other automakers, you haven't been able to work around the chip situation as easily as maybe you would have liked, but you've got the Nautilus. Sales are up on that. Navigator sales are up. And even though these sales are up, I know that there's probably that desire still to move more of these cars, because I think people really want them. How has this time, in terms of maybe the supply chain issues, how has that impacted Lincoln?
Yeah, so to your point, 2021, our sales were down a little bit, but there were bright spots, and it was the Nautilus and the Navigator. But what it's, as I mentioned earlier, our retailers are great at pivoting and responding to what consumers are looking for. And so they've done a great job of being able to take orders now. So a client comes in and says, I'm looking for a new Navigator, rather than, in previous times where they would just pick one from the lot. They're sitting down and they're able to customize the order. So it's really more of a personalized experience. The orders get placed and then prioritized, and then when the vehicle comes in, they experience the Lincoln way, and again, in terms of just creating a great experience for those clients.
I got about 30 seconds left here. What can we expect from Lincoln moving forward this year and into the future?
Again, we're shifting towards electrification. You'll hear more about that later this year, and we're going to have, to your earlier point, a lot of celebrations around our centennial.
I look forward to it. North American Director of Lincoln, Michael Sprague, thank you so much for your time. Happy birthday, and we're going to continue to watch all the good things Lincoln's putting out there. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Chris.
Yep, you got it. We are going to continue our WJR Road Show featuring Ford Motor Company as we continue on this morning right here on WJR. Chris Renwick in for Paul W. Don't go anywhere. More next on WJR.
This is a metaphor.
I do love those Lincolns, man. They are wonderful cars.
Chris, I got an F-150 maybe 4 years ago. I'll never drive a car again. I love it.
No,
Absolutely love it.
I've got an SUV, and I'll never go back to a car.
I can't imagine.
Nope.
I drove my daughter's, she's got an electric car. I drove it just to do it. And I don't know, it just felt like I was on a big wheel or something.
Yeah.
What kind is it, Sean?
She's got the Bolt.
Okay.
And it's a smooth drive. It's wonderful. The only problem that we've had with it is when the temperature dips like really low, it takes a while to charge the car. It really does. It takes a while to charge the car. So now that the weather got warmer, it charges quicker and everything. But, there was about a month time there where it was, you had to take your time to charge the car, but it drives so smoothly. It makes no noise. But after being up in the truck for so long, I can't imagine going back down again. I can't.
People love their trucks, don't they?
Yeah.
I drove something the other day, probably a similar size to the Bolt, and it almost felt like I was in a go-kart.
Yeah.
Like I was real low to the ground, and like it was real compact, and I'm like, wow, I just feel like I could be whipping around, the corners at a go-kart track.
Well, and the the proof's in the pudding on these on the Lincolns. I mean, 100 years of a brand. That's
Yeah.
huge.
No,
You
they're
know,
and
people
those
love their Lincolns.
the Navigators are probably one of my favorite cars of all time. And then the Nautiluses are great too. I mean, they're great. They're great cars. Great vehicles.
So anything new at this hour, Chris, for us to chat with the audience about at 7:05 on Ukraine? I found a couple of things. Ukraine's culture minister, and this is really heartbreaking. He I don't know if it's a he or a she, but the culture minister says Russia is destroying Ukraine's cultural sites. Now, you know, this is the thing about war that's just insane. You know, these cultural sites have been around forever, and it's part of the community. You know, it's why are they doing that? They're destroying what will likely be their own. You know, it just makes no sense to me.
Well, again, I mean, you're and even to your point, this is Europe. Like this isn't, you know, a couple 100-year-old America. This is Europe. These buildings have been around forever. I mean, a lot of these places have been around forever.
You know, the other thing that's been interesting to watch, it's more of a side story, but it's interesting to watch, is the United States and other European countries taking a look at confiscating these oligarchs' yachts. I mean, did you see some of these yachts?
Oh, they're
unbelievable.
They're buku.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, the money. I mean, some of them are like, they've got
millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah. So my question though is, how is the United States or any other European country able to confiscate the yacht? Like, what would be the legal basis?
That's a great question.
For being
Yeah,
able to
I don't know
do
the
that?
answer to that. I don't know the
You
answer.
know, like how can we just
Run down the hall and ask your husband. Seriously, I have no idea.
Well, you know, the other thing too is that did you see the story about the worker on one of these yachts who was Ukrainian tried to sink one? Did you see that?
I did.
Yeah.
Did it
Tried to
work?
I don't believe so.
I think it's funny how that kid down in Florida is tracking all the Russian flights. I just think that, I don't know if you guys have seen that. It's the same kid that was tracking all of Elon Musk's flights. And this kid is tracking, there's like a flight tracker talking where all the oligarchs are flying to and where they're flying out of. It's amazing.
Yeah, you know, and that kind of goes to the stuff that we had talked about maybe earlier in the week of like, you know, this isn't the 1940s anymore. This isn't the 1930s. This time is different, and like we're just connected in a totally different way.
Yeah, we can see it happening, like we talked
See
about
things
yesterday,
happen in real time. You know,
And
we
the
are
outrage.
like we have access to satellite imagery now. Like that used to be a primarily military government, you know, perk or whatever. Like we didn't have access to that. Now you just click on Google Maps. Like that's crazy. It's just a totally different world.
So going to my yacht question, I've done a little Googling here. Apparently it's legal under the Civil Asset Forfeiture Reform Act, which has roots in the 18th century when America would seize cargo from foreign ships that didn't pay a customs or import tax. So we have formed a task force here in the United States where we would go after these yachts by trying to trace the money behind the purchase of the yacht. And so they're claiming that some of the money that's used to purchase the yacht is obviously dark
They
money.
didn't acquire that all on the up and up.
Correct. It's kind of a tough punt.
They didn't just put on their boots and tighten up the bootstraps and got to work.
Right. Day in and day out, you mean?
Right, I'm sure.
40 hour
Evidently,
week.
the KGB was paying Putin just an inordinate amount of money. The man is absolutely loaded.
Well, some of these guys who own these yachts, you know, I thought I saw one price tag for a yacht of $600 million.
Oy.
I mean, just like crazy money. And they're all over the world. But it says here, the Department of Justice has announced the formation of a special unit, a task force, and it's called Klepto capture.
Oh,
yeah. This is the making of a movie right here.
absolutely, it does.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
this,
51 Bible, 855 51 Bible.
It's the WJR Road Show with Paul W. Smith, presented by Tajin Automotive and Lear. Today's road show is at Ford Motor Company. Now filling in for Paul, here's Chris Renwick.
Welcome back to the show. It's the Road Show with Paul W. Smith. Chris Renwick in for Paul this morning. And today we're talking about Ford. We're talking about the Blue Oval. And with the help of our friends, the Tajin Automotive Technology and Lear Corporations. But Ann, we were talking in the break, and if you want to participate in the show in a different way, obviously we love when you listen, but we're live on Facebook and on our YouTube page today. So if you want to head on over there, you can look at me for whatever reason and participate in the show that way. In the meantime, we were talking about Ukraine in the break and what this means for some of these oligarchs and some of these ultra rich Russians who in one of the main focuses, Ann, has been on the yachts, because these aren't little dinghies. Like this is no canoe. This is a big time boat that are worth, hundreds of millions of dollars. And there's been, it seems like, a movement to try to figure out a way to maybe seize some of these assets.
yes, it's really interesting to watch, Chris. The Department of Justice has announced the formation of a special unit, a task force, and it's called Klepto Capture. And they are going to try to figure out a way to seize some of these yachts. And apparently it's legal under the Civil Asset Forfeiture Reform Act. And what they'll try to do is they'll look at how they acquired the yacht. So what type of money was used to acquire the yacht? And apparently they would work that way to then seize the yacht. But these yachts are, as you point out, no canoes. They are multi-million-dollar yachts all over the world. And there's something to see. Wow.
Are you insinuating that there's some dark money at play here? Are you insinuating that perhaps they acquired these mega yachts on some maybe nefarious purposes?
Well, I was trying to figure out, my original question was, how could the United States and other European countries do this legally? So I did a little
You mean
research. Yeah, how can you just go confiscate somebody's boat or their yacht? Well, now I've looked into it a little bit more, and I've answered my own question. And yes, they do this by looking at how the yacht was purchased. What type of money was used to purchase that yacht?
Very interesting. In the meantime, we're seeing in the last hour or so some news from Ukraine's culture minister, who says Russia is destroying culture sites in Ukraine. He called for closing the skies over Ukraine because Russian aggressors are destroying Ukrainian culture sites. Most of Putin's war crimes in Ukraine have been committed from the air, he said. Russia's missiles and planes are deliberately destroying historic centers of big cities. Putin wants to destroy Europe's heritage and culture and wipe it from the face of the earth.
That's insane. I mean, what the heck?
It's the psychological warfare that we talked about a couple days ago. It really is. It's, and you have to remember their allegation is there is no Ukrainian culture. You're us. You're our brothers. We are all part of Mother Russia and everything. So, the night bombings, the encirclements and everything. This is a guy that is, in my mind, trying to psychologically tear these people down and say, you don't have an identity. Come into Mother Russia's bosom. We are all brothers.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely part of it. And I think from a psychological perspective, it's just beating people down.
Yep.
It's not only are we going to destroy your city, not only are we going to destroy your grocery store, your schools, your museums, but even that church that you thought maybe you could seek refuge, even that church where you thought maybe you could go pray, maybe in that church where you thought, you could speak to God and try to make sense of all of this. Well, now we're going to take that away from you too. It's absolutely psychological warfare. I don't think that Russia they have no desire to keep any of these things around. None, zero. This is just absolute all out and out war. And I absolutely think that a huge portion of this, is psychological. In the meantime, did you see I happened to be watching Fox News yesterday. And I just continue to be in awe of Volodymyr Zelensky and the way that he continues to handle himself. I just think in the pantheon of like great leaders that we've seen around the world, this guy is he's of that same cloth, right? Like he is
absolutely.
He is just a guy who's like, no, I'm not leaving, and he's got a family. He's got a beautiful wife. He's got beautiful kids, and he could very easily say, you know what, this is a losing battle. I can't do this anymore, but he doesn't, and it's incredibly admirable, and they're only continuing to work to try to figure this thing out as they move along. But he held a press conference in some undisclosed, underground location yesterday, and Trey Yingst over at Fox News asked him a question that said, are you frustrated that the aid from the United States came after the war started? And he said that it was a pity, is what Zelensky said. He said it was a pity. But then he also said, look, we're appreciative of the help. We're appreciative of America for helping us. We have a great relationship. We talk. Everything is copacetic. But he did say it was a pity that it came too early. Is there a fine line that this administration needed to walk in hindsight as we kind of autopsy this thing as we go along? Would it have been looked as maybe aggressive to the Russians if we were arming or arming either with weapons or military materials or money Ukraine before there was an invasion? Would that be looked at as hostile? And that's why maybe they waited?
It's an interesting question, Chris, because I know one of the debates, a lot of people were calling for sanctions before things happened. And how do you sanction somebody for something they didn't do? You know, I mean, there were so many things, so many people saying we have to impose sanctions now. Well, at the time, Russia hadn't invaded yet. Did I believe that it was training exercises? Of course not. But how do you punish one for something that they didn't do? Aid is a different thing, in my opinion. Would that have seemed hostile? Of course it would have. But I think if you sneeze too hard, Vladimir Putin thinks that that's hostile. So would I have gone that route? Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's hard to analyze this because foreign affairs is a tough game.
Sure.
And now we're seeing within the last 24 hours a new issue cropping up for both the United States and Europe, and that are some of these sanctions kind of painting Putin into a corner and therefore making him more angry and more violent. So this is another issue that has come up in the last 24 hours. It's going to be discussed.
That's a good point. And going back to the psychological warfare of all of this, I do wonder a little bit if this was all kind of a ploy on Russia. Said, oh yeah, we're going to come in, maybe bumble some things around, maybe look like we ran out of gas, those kind of things. And then as now we have heard from Emmanuel Macron, the leader of France, who just recently spoke with Putin, he's like, no, we're not stopping. And you haven't even seen anything yet. Like, that's really the scary part. And again, you're giving these people a false sense of hope that maybe they can hold on, maybe they can fight this thing. And in reality, it's probably not going to happen. More to come on the Paul W. Smith Show next, right here on WJR.
Great Lakes Post empowers and employs individuals.
Chris, just give me the intro to the business speak, please.
Of sports and entertainment in America. Great Lakes Post is proudly made possible by the generous support of Ally Financial and Artisan Tile.
It's finally happening. One of the world's newest and biggest wrestling promotions is finally coming to Detroit on June 29th, and that's All Elite Wrestling, also known as AEW. It also marks the return of a hometown wrestler.
Did you get me there, Chris?
Very nice.
Yep, I got you. Sorry, Brian.
Visit GreatLakesPost.com for more info and full reviews.
7:14 right here on the Paul W. Smith Show on WJR. It's time for WJR's Business Beat. Jeff Sloan, founder and CEO of Startup Nation, here to spotlight the entrepreneurial tech and startup community on WJR.
Good morning. It's Friday, and today on the Business Beat, we've got...
Good morning, Rich. The Ford assembly plant in Kansas City has just dropped the mask requirements. Oh, okay. That seems to go in line with a lot of actions that people are taking. Businesses, local governments, state governments. That's now kind of become the norm. As look, do I think it's time that we're at this point? Yep, I sure do. And the numbers seem to bear that out. That nobody really seems to be overwhelmed at this point. Hospitals aren't overwhelmed. And so now that we get into the warmer months where people are going to be able to spend more time outside, just like the last couple summers, those numbers have dropped. And so they're pretty low now. So I anticipate them to be even lower as we go along.
Quick behind the scenes question for our wonderful board op the head of the digital department, Curtis. Curtis, is Daniel House there, and shall we bring him in and say hello and test him for the next segment?
Hi, Curtis.
Good morning.
Is Daniel there yet, Curtis?
I do not see Daniel yet.
Okay, he should be popping in any time now.
All right.
He was teasing me about this. When I asked him to come on StreamYard, he was like, "You mean and get dressed up?" I said, "Oh, no, you don't have to get dressed up. We're not dressed up." So he should be popping in here, though, any second, I think.
I just have my Zoom sweater on the side, so whenever the camera goes on, I quick throw on the Zoom sweater.
The Zoom sweater,
the Zoom sweater.
You can't see the T-shirt and the sweats. You just see the sweater, right?
Yeah. You kind of spiff yourself up a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. I think Daniel will text me if he's having a trouble. So we'll just kind of hang in here. He should be in here any second. Maybe I should text Daniel and make sure he's doing okay.
Oh, I have confidence that Daniel's doing all right. He better. He was hanging though, that's for sure. Don says GM dropping the mask mandate. Also, there will be some exceptions based on areas, and the CDC says that are still at risk. Yeah, there are some exceptions where the CDC is recommending mask wearing, but for a huge majority of the country, that's.
So, what about you guys? Are you comfortable going out, doing everything out in public without a mask?
I've had it twice. Heck yeah. I've been vaccinated. I've had it twice. I've got tons of immunity in me. Yeah, I don't have any problem with it.
So did you get the Omicron one too then?
Yeah.
Sean?
Yeah. It was the same thing. My wife and son were laid out, and I mean, it was absolutely nothing for me. It was
I had it too. I had the Omicron, and I of course worked from home, but I never stopped doing anything. But I was completely vaccinated.
I didn't say anything to you 3 weeks ago because you would have told me to take the week off. So
no, I wouldn't have, because I worked through it myself.
Oh, did you? Yeah. It was it was nothing.
It was nothing to me. In fact, I never would have if we weren't in a pandemic. The way I felt, I never would have tested for it.
Yeah.
The only reason I did that was because I have grandchildren and elderly parents. So I thought, well, I better make sure I'm okay.
Yeah.
But I was the only person that got it in my family. Nobody else. Nothing.
Yeah, it's both
so
times
strange.
My wife and son got it pretty good, and my daughter and I, I think I told you a year ago. It was a year ago, right around this time.
That.
My legs, like for 2 days, it felt like somebody took a bat to my legs. It was
Wonder
weird.
why.
My legs just hurt. It was weird.
Well, remember the initial kind of one of the initial symptoms to look for was that like muscle tightness or in your shoulders and your shoulder blades. So and then it kind of just spread. They're like, if you've got any issues, you probably need to test for COVID.
Yeah. This was a stuffy nose. Like 3 weeks ago, honest to goodness, it was just a stuffy nose.
Hey guys, I'm going to jump in for just a second. I see Daniel has arrived. Hello, Daniel.
Daniel.
Hey, Gare.
How are you?
Daniel, can you pull your camera down just a little bit so we don't have quite so much headroom?
You don't want to see the ceiling?
Those recessed lights are wonderful, Dan.
Daniel, you got all dressed up for us.
Oh yeah, I primped.
It's nice to see you.
He had to go to bed dressed like that because it's so early.
Yeah, these newspaper guys, they don't get up as early as we do.
No, we don't, and we think you guys are nuts.
We think we're nuts
although I do get up at 5:30 a couple times a week for my workouts, but
oh well, then you're good. Then
you're fine.
You're good.
Yeah, this is actually late. 7:20. I mean, you're ready to roll. Thanks for doing this too, by the way.
You bet.
How you been? Everybody good on your end?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. We just got back from being down south, down in Florida for our annual sea kayaking trip down in south of St. Augustine.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome.
I forgot you were a big kayaker.
Maybe a little rain and snow Monday. From the Weather Channel, I'm meteorologist Ray Staging on News Talk 760 WJR.
Welcome back to the WJR Road Show with Paul W. Smith, presented by Tajin Automotive and Lear. Today's Road Show is at Ford Motor Company. Once again, substituting for Paul W. Smith, here's Chris Renwick.
We're talking about our good friends over at the Blue Oval this morning, and they made some big time news this week in how they were going to balance their normal business operations with the push towards electric vehicles and how they were going to manage that. And help us talk about it. Daniel Howes, the Detroit News senior editor for business and auto, joins us this morning here on the Paul W. Smith Show. Daniel, nice to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
What did you make of this decision by Ford in this kind of balancing act between the legacy brand and then the idea and the push maybe to go more towards the electrical vehicle side? What did you make of it?
Well, CEO Jim Farley has been signaling, I think, for some time that they were seeing evidence that running these two different aspects of the business were at a different speed, if you will. And that they needed to be more, as he says, be more specialized. He talked about, when we talked to him earlier this week, he talked about having to ask too many people to do too many things at the same time, focusing on, the legacy products, the F-150s, the Explorers, the Broncos, the Mustangs, and then at the same time to being developed electric versions of those vehicles. I think it makes a lot of sense what they're doing, and I think he's trying to get the best available athlete to do these kinds of different tasks. He's going to is essentially breaking it up based on expertise. What's called Model E, which is as you might imagine, the electric vehicle side of the business, will be several thousand people that will be very focused on software. And by the way, some of the software and the things that the embedded systems that they develop will be proliferated across the entire product line. So it could be in a gas F-150 3 or 4 years from now, as well as a new all electric version of a truck or an SUV or whatever. I think it frankly makes a lot of sense. And it's funny, General Motors people were texting me and some of my team throughout the process of this announcement the other day, saying, well, we've done this, and they're just playing catch up. And this is the kind of thing that goes on behind the scenes. But, I think my point is there's a recognition in the industry that you need to specialize in these things because we're moving into a point of critical mass.
Yeah, and I had somebody text me yesterday, and they asked, well, does this mean that Ford is trying to provide a way to continue the as Jim Farley calls it, the legacy brand, and
Mhm.
kind of what Ford Motor Company has always been and traditionally been, to this new push towards electric vehicles in the future? Is there a way for them to maintain both of those things? Are they trying to ease their way into the EV market, into the EV space? How do you view kind of this move into
I wouldn't call it easing. I think they have to do both, and I think they think that as well. That's not just me talking. I mean, I think the question is for the industry, and we don't know the answer, is to how quickly the transition actually happens, how quickly you see adoption in the mass adoption in the marketplace. Do you have the infrastructure, the charging infrastructure? Well, I mean, that's going to be critical. If you don't have it, I think people are going to be leery to make the move. I think Ford takes a more measured approach to that transition. I mean, Farley and others are on record as saying we think that the ICE business, the legacy business, is going to be around for an extended period of time. General Motors, you feel like sometimes that they can't wait to get rid of the ICE engine. Now we've got these exogenous shock of the Ukraine-Russia war, rising oil prices. I think it raises a couple of other questions, one of which is, did the car companies move too quickly to get out of the car business and get squarely into the truck and SUV business? And when gas is at $4 or $5 a gallon, or for a sustained period of time, how's that going to change consumer behavior? And the short answer is we don't know.
Yeah,
we can speculate, but no, I think as we move into this period, we're at a point where these car companies have to do both, and if they don't do both, they're going to lose out. Ford has been actually very successful so far with their electric vehicles. The Mustang Mach-E has been a hit. They got over 200,000 orders for the Ford F-150 Lightning electric truck. Their story is good. GM's, on the other hand, its only product that it has in the marketplace, it's only one, the Bolt and its derivatives. All of them are under recall for battery fires.
Right.
So and they don't have another product in the market.
Well, and that's a company that says we're going to be all EV by 2035, and they've kind of made that declaration. What I love about what Ford's doing is they're not doing that. They're saying, look, we're going to specialize. We're going to do both. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. And I think that's really something that makes a lot of sense to me. And as gas prices go up, as issues with maybe the semiconductors and chip shortage continues to persist, how do you see the next, even couple of years unfolding, not only in the auto industry as a whole, but at Ford?
It's going to be weird. I mean, the way I would describe it, I mean, you have these very contradictory things happening in the marketplace. You have, difficulty getting semiconductor chips, which we've seen throughout the pandemic. That's going to continue.
Yeah.
Yet, these companies are making an awful lot of money. Why? Transaction prices of these vehicles are at all-time highs. They're able to charge essentially full price for vehicles. The market is still very robust. There's a lot of demand in the marketplace. You can get situations now where vehicles that someone leased 3 years ago, they come to turn their lease in, and they've got $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 of equity in that lease, meaning the vehicle is worth more than the company said that it would when they issued the lease.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of weird things going on in the marketplace. And I think, and now you add in some international instability, high oil prices. I think you're going to get into a very strange situation that they're going to have to navigate. So being nimble and recognizing what's in front of you is really important.
No doubt. Daniel Howes over at the Detroit News. Always appreciate the time and insight, my friend. Thank you. Nice talking with you. More to come next on WJR.
Did you know you can save money on your energy costs and help the planet? With Consumers Energy, it's a...
Hey, thanks, Dan.
You bet.
Appreciate you.
Thanks a lot. See you guys.
Talk to you.
I'm on mute.
All right.
All right. That was interesting. Isn't he wonderful? He's great.
Yeah, Daniel House is the best. I mean, he's
He knows
very,
his stuff.
very well connected and knows what's going on.
So coming up next, we got Patrick DeHaan.
Yep.
He's on Eastern time. He's somewhere on Eastern time. Usually he's Central time. So
yeah, he's in Chicago usually.
Yeah. So I said, "Are you sure you want 7:35?" And he said, "I'm on Eastern time." So
wow,
this might be.
And is he joining us via StreamYard?
Yes, he's joining through
Yes, great.
StreamYard.
We have
Oh,
Matt
cool.
Garchow, which I believe he's after. Let's say hello.
Matt Garco
Hey, Matt.
is. Hi, Matt.
Hey, Matt.
What's
Morning.
up, Matt?
How you doing?
Good, good, good. How are you
Thanks
guys
for
doing?
doing this. We appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
How's business?
It's good for now. It's everything's just
Yeah.
a little topsy turvy. We don't
Yeah.
know where we're headed. I guess everybody's in that boat now. It looks
Yeah.
like, huh?
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Matt, you sound good. So I'm going to keep you backstage for the next segment. We'll bring you in right after that.
All righty. How long are we thinking?
Ann, what's our timetable?
We have Matt scheduled for 7:49, and it'll be like probably about a 7-minute interview, Matt.
Okay, but you don't need me sitting here until then.
Well, I'm just thinking if the next guest, if the next guest doesn't pop in the next 3 to 4 minutes, we may go to you and flip things. So don't go too far.
I
You
won't.
can be,
I'll be in the same room.
yeah, you can be backstage, but just you might hear us calling. Yeah, okay. That way we do a fair amount of that for our Facebook audience.
Yeah.
But yeah, Patrick got the link and he said he would join us. So what is gas? What's the price of gas this morning? Do we know?
I saw $3.85 yesterday.
Oh, wow.
I spent $3.79 on Wednesday.
Okay.
I loaded it up and told the kids, I said, go to the, at least my son, go to the gas station now and just fill it up because it's not going to get any better.
$3.74 is the average price right now for regular.
So, Sean, do you have them trained to also get gas at all times?
No, especially
Oh.
my son.
What about your wife?
No, she's the worst. She's the I've had to go pick her up twice, and it's yeah. I feel like dad every time I do it.
Diane, good morning to you. I feel like fuel is increasing 10 cents a day.
$3.89 by the.
Don Kruger says $3.89 by me. My goodness.
Yeah.
So, Chris, you may not know this, but Sean gets gas. I don't think you always you always have the tank full pretty
Yeah.
much, right, Sean?
Yeah, pretty much.
And so we had a little conversation about this on the show with Paul. Paul's more like Sean. I am more like Sean's wife. I let it go right down to nothing all the time. Drives my husband bonkers.
Yep. I feel like dad. I really do. It's like one time I came and picked her up and she had her head down and I go, I'm not gonna say anything. It was dad.
I'm not gonna say anything.
I'm like right in the middle. I kind of start getting a little squirrely when it's like a little less than half a tank. I'm like, all right, I got to go get gas.
The other
My
thing
wife,
I don't like
it's
to
funny.
do-
My wife's in my wife's car. She won't
Yeah.
get gas, and then magically when we take her car somewhere, she's like, "We need to get gas."
I do the
and then
same
who goes
thing.
to get gas? I go outside because I'm a chivalrous gentleman.
Of course.
I go out and I get the gas. So I'm
I
outside in the
often-
frigid cold.
I often plan it that way. So when
I-
we're going
I-
somewhere, I
I
say,
can
let's
test
take
she
my
does too.
car. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I can test she does too.
You
The
know
other
what's
thing-
a problem? The gas station at 8 Mile and Taft, it's almost like my own personal Cheers. Everybody knows my name. Hi, Sean. Good morning, Sean. It's
Well, you've made
So
friends.
how many times a week are you at the gas station getting gas then?
if I go someplace, I a lot of times I just top it off. I don't know how to explain it. I just,
So then your gas price, like the whatever you pay, is like $8 or whatever.
yeah, a lot of times it's like that. Like
Yeah.
I know I went grocery shopping, and when I saw it at $3.79, I called my son. I said, go fill up your tank. If you need some money, I'll give you some money. And I think I put in $11. It was like $11, and it topped me off, and I was fine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
The other thing I don't care for doing, I did do it the other day, though, because I was desperate. Although I did have Ed in the car with me. I don't like to get the car washed. And he loves to get the car washed.
I wish I washed my car more than I do. I really need to.
I agree. That's a weakness of mine for sure.
Yeah.
Really? I would have thought you two would have said you were big car washers.
No, I especially in the winter. You know, in the spring and summer, I'm more, apt to do it myself even. But in the wintertime, no, I should mix in a wash every now and again.
Young Jacob loves to go to the car wash. So he
yeah.
loves going in the car wash.
Boy, so did my son. It's funny.
Yeah.
Oh,
really? No kidding.
It. Yeah.
Loved it. Yeah, he
loved
loves it. So I do go more now than I have in the past because he's like, can we go to the car wash? And I'm like, okay, yeah, we can go to the car wash.
So Patrick DeHaan says, just call when you're ready. I sent him the text or the link yesterday, and he said he was good with the link. I'm sending Brian his number.
Okay.
And we may have to talk to him on the phone.
Okay.
Okay. He hasn't responded to my "can you use the link" question.
So the gas prices it was in San Francisco that went up to $5 a gallon for the first time. Now it's in LA.
And I think there's Chicago's
5.01.
high. See what Chicago looks like. I thought I saw that Chicago was high too. And we may have to, so Pat is going to try to do the link. He says, oh, right. So he may be, Curtis, just so you know, he may be coming in here with the link any second now.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, Patrick. Are you there?
Hey there.
Hey, Patrick.
I am not ready for camera access. I thought this was audio only.
You don't have to be on camera. This sounds
okay.
good.
Yeah, you sound
this
good.
works. That's good.
Yeah,
I just wasn't aware.
Get tickets at dia.org/buyherhand.
Welcome back to the WJR Road Show with Paul W. Smith, presented by Tajin Automotive and Lear. Today's road show is at Ford Motor Company. Once again in for Paul, here's Chris Renwick.
Well, good Friday morning. Good to have you with us. We have seen, or at least we have expected gas prices to go up. And now we're seeing elevated prices in places like San Francisco, up over $5 a gallon. In LA now, up over $5 a gallon. That is a first time that people are paying over $5 a gallon for $5 for a gallon of gas. First time that's happening. That is a lot of money. And now we're even seeing in Chicago elevated prices up to $4.50 in some areas. Here in Michigan, I think I saw yesterday $3.85. So we're starting to see these prices creep up. Patrick DeHaan is the head of petroleum analysis at Gas Buddy. He joins us this morning on the Paul W. Smith Show. Patrick, nice to have you with us. Is all of these elevated levels, is this all attributed to what's happening in Russia and some of the sanctions that have been placed?
Well, really, across much of the country, some of it is. I would say it's kind of half and half. But we're having the Russian situation, the war in Ukraine, happen at the same time. We're also starting that transition to summer gasoline. And so between discounts that we had on winter gasoline as refiners were trying to purge it, we've also made this first step to summer gasoline. And then on top of it, the Russian war. So it's kind of twofold here, Russia and the seasonal factors. But of course, Russia has really propelled oil up. So it's tough to say what percent is what, but I would say most of it's probably the Russia situation.
When the president announced at his State of the Union this week that he would be withdrawing 60 million barrels from the strategic reserve, he talked about, look, this is going to bring gas prices down. I'm curious to know, how much is it going to lower gas prices? Because on average, we as a country use about 18 to 20 million barrels of gasoline a day. And so you're looking at a 3-day span, maybe 3.5-day span of oil. Is that enough to bring gas prices down?
Well, and to go over some of those details too, I wish it was 60 million. The IEA's total organization has committed to 60 million of that. The U.S. is only contributing 30 million barrels. My question is this, and why this probably won't be effective at all, is simply that last fall, President Biden tapped the reserve. Back then, it wasn't even about Russia or a supply disruption. It was merely to bring prices down. The U.S. contributed 50 million barrels, basically doing it on their own. And, now we're facing a supply disruption from Russia because of the sanctions that are hitting banking and shipping. And now we're contributing less, 30 million barrels of the total 60 million barrel release. So again, this is not going to get much traction because these releases are just very small. And as you mentioned, the U.S. contribution, 30 million barrels, it's about a day and a half of U.S. oil consumption. It's about 14 hours of global consumption, that's 60 million barrels. So, these things aren't going to get much traction because they're small.
There's been so much made about being energy independent, and really now more than ever, the president was, when he was sworn into office, basically put the kibosh on the Keystone Pipeline immediately, and that was a big driver of oil for us. And now we're kind of sitting here twiddling our thumbs, wondering what the next move is. How do we get these prices down? I mean, you're looking at elevated inflation. We're looking at higher prices even at the grocery store because of some of these gas prices. So, what really can be done here? How do we start bringing these prices down? Because I got to tell you, $5 a gallon is unacceptable. It's just unacceptable. How do we start bringing this back down?
Well, this is really only a function of what's happening in Russia with the loss of 10 million barrels that we're, at this point correctly sanctioning. I don't think anyone would, we shouldn't allow that oil to flow to the market. This is kind of the cost we have to pay for a sudden and drastic change in supply and demand. There's not a whole lot. I mean, it doesn't really matter Democrat or Republican. Now you had mentioned the Keystone, the pipeline that hadn't been in existence, but there's also been other pipelines like Line 3, which is run by Enbridge, which is a name most people in Michigan are familiar with. Their Line 3 expanded. There's a capacity to carry oil. The problem is oil producers just aren't churning it out. And the drilling moratorium was struck down also that he had issued. The problem now is simply getting oil companies to produce this oil, whether it's Canada or U.S. producers. Now they're doing it, but because of what Biden did when he paraded in the White House and said, I'm going to cut this and that with oil, that probably slowed down the desire of oil companies to really want to do much. So, some of this, let's be frank, is that oil companies have this capacity. They have drilled and uncompleted wells that they could retap, but they're taking a cautious approach, whether that's because of Biden or the pandemic. But having said that, I think one of the things that the president should do, in addition to releasing more oil, because we are in a disruption now because of the sanctions, is the president should waive the summer gasoline requirements that push prices up significantly. Would it do a lot? No, but we're in a predicament. This is, a situation we've never encountered before.
We've seen other countries around the world start to disavow or start to really put pressure on the Russian oil companies. We saw BP liquidate a bunch of their stake in one of the big time oil companies. I guess the thing here now is, in the next 45 seconds I have, Patrick, is as we move forward, how long is this going to be sustainable? How long can we hold their feet to the fire?
Well, the sanctions are going to be very long and very damaging to the Russian economy. In fact, because of the sanctions, which, by the way, they haven't targeted energy yet, but because they've targeted banking and shipping, there's basically been a de facto sanction on Russian energy. And as you mentioned, hardly anyone's pulling oil. So how long will this last? It will last as long as the Russian war in Ukraine lasts, until there's a peace treaty signed and Russia's oil, if the relationships aren't permanently damaged, we could be in this boat for a while.
Oh boy. Patrick DeHaan over at Gas Buddy. Always appreciate the time and insight, my friend. Thank you.
My pleasure.
More to come on the Paul W. Smith Show as we continue on with our road show, presented by Tajan Lear right here on WJR. Don't go anywhere.
Paul W. here. Everyone has heard about the PPP program and the other types of COVID relief from last year. But did you know there's one grant it's not too late to get? It's called the Employee Retention Tax Credit, ERC for short. ERC is like a rebate from the government to reimburse business owners for some of their payroll costs during the pandemic. Eligible business owners can get up to $26,000 per employee. This money doesn't have to be paid back. There's no rule on how it's spent. If you own a business with at least 5 W-2 employees, I recommend you call our friends at AR Law to see if you qualify.
And so, Curtis, Matt is next. Matt Garcall. Here comes Matt.
There he is.
Hey,
good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. So Matt, these high gas prices, does that affect your business at all?
Well, we'll see. It hasn't thus far, but usually when they get high like this, you'll start to see trucks and SUVs come down. But unfortunately, in our case, that's all we sell now. So that's not a good thing, is it?
No.
So we'll see.
Jeez.
You know, they've gotten rid of all the sedans. Our only car now is the Mustang. So,
But Sean and Chris both say they'd never give up their SUV or their trucks.
No.
Well, that's the sad part about all this. It really doesn't affect. It affects poor people more than anybody else. You know what I mean? There's people that $5 of gas, the four of us are still going to go where we need to go and do what we need to do. Where there's a lot of people that won't be able to.
No, you're right. They won't be able to go, visit their family member on the west side of the state, or they're not going to be able to. Yeah, of course. Right. It's really unfortunate. It really stinks.
No, and it affects so many other things too.
Right. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it affects. I mean, plane tickets, I imagine, are going to go up. They've already been elevated, so they're going to go up.
I don't think they can get up much higher.
I know.
It's amazing. Just in Detroit too. My daughter lives on the West Coast, and they fly anywhere for next to nothing. And it just seems like she'll meet us in Florida, and we're $1,000 a ticket. She's $300 from LA. I just don't get it.
It's funny you say that. I was looking at tickets from Detroit to Florida, for later in the spring. They are really expensive. It's crazy. It is about $1,000.
Right? Yes.
Yeah. That's wild.
But why would it be $300 from LA to Detroit or LA
Makes
to
no sense.
Fort
A lot
Myers?
further.
I know.
Crazy. Well, thank you again for doing this. We appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Anytime I get to spend the morning with Sean, I'm happy.
L-Town for life, Matt.
That's right. That's right.
Sean was telling us he's making ribs this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Matt gave up meat for Lent, so Matt's not having ribs.
Oh, no.
You are a brave man, sir.
Wow.
Oh, the whole Lent, huh, Matt?
And I got a big delivery of meat yesterday. My wife's like, "What the heck are you doing? You're not even eating meat." I'm like, "Well, it'll be good. It's going in the freezer."
That's exactly it.
So
my meat freezer's always packed.
I was reading the rules of Lent for some reason last night. And years ago, you didn't eat meat any days of Lent, apparently.
Yep.
Fish only, right?
Yeah, fish only.
Right.
That
wasn't that long ago where it wasn't just Friday. It was,
yeah. I mean, it's kind of a healthy thing to do, period.
Call me a traditionalist then, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes. Very impressive, Matt.
Back in the day, they used to put the ashes on top of your head instead of on your forehead. And a friend of mine's wife went to a different church to go to Ash Wednesday, and they put them on her head. She was so mad.
Really?
Yeah, she had her hair all done and everything, and the ashes on her head.
Yeah, that would be kind of...
I don't know that I knew that they used to put it on the top of your head.
Yeah.
Wasn't there talk of doing that during the pandemic?
I didn't hear that. No, that's the first I've heard of it, too. So
That's interesting, yeah. Wow.
Once again, substituting for Paul W. Smith, here's Chris Renwick.
Good to have you with us as we continue our WJR Road Show featuring Ford Motor Company. We've talked a little bit about, we talked about Lincoln, and celebrating their 100th anniversary and all the good things that they're doing. And we talked with Daniel Howes kind of about the shakeup at the corporate level from Ford as they focus on their traditional business and then move towards the EV market. And one of the folks that you deal with when you go buy your car is the dealerships. Matt Garko is the new vehicle sales manager at Bill Brown Ford. He joins us this morning on the Paul W. Smith Show. Matt, nice to have you with us.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
This is probably an interesting time for you as a dealer perspective, because not only are they trying to churn these cars out, they're trying to get them out to you guys so you can get them to the public, but they're having a hard time even completing them because of the semiconductor shortage. How much of a disruption has that been for dealerships like yours?
Well, it's been quite a disruption. I mean, really the burden has been on the customer more than anything else, which is hard for us because we're obviously customer facing. So it's hard to explain to somebody, why their vehicle's not in yet, and a lot of disappointment and aggravation, and there's no real rhyme or reason. Their neighbor could have ordered one 2 months after they did, and they got their car and they didn't. So that's
right.
An interesting phone call to field when I get that phone call.
Yeah, no doubt. There has been, look, the push towards bigger sized vehicles, even mid-sized SUVs, trucks, obviously a huge seller, the F-150. And now with gas prices elevated, that's another issue that I think the dealerships are going to have to contend with. But with all that being said, these types of vehicles have gotten more fuel efficient over the years. You do have EcoBoost in a lot of them. They're not quite as the gas guzzlers as I think that they used to be, even 10, 15 years ago.
No. Most of them have at least doubled in fuel efficiency. You're going to see a lot more hybrid in those type of vehicles coming soon. And of course, you hear everything about electric coming, but even just the hybrid and, like you said, the EcoBoost motor, is definitely much more fuel efficient. And so far we haven't seen a drop in sales, and I hope we don't, because quite honestly, that's all we sell is SUVs and trucks.
Right.
We've got the Mustang, and that's our only car.
Well, that's not a bad little car to sell either. You talked about the electric vehicle push, and then obviously the Oval made some big decisions yesterday and announced some of these moves or earlier this week. This Mustang Mach-E, I haven't driven one yet. I gotta drive one because it looks amazing. That you partner that with the F-150 Lightning. These are two, I think, kind of cornerstone vehicles that Ford can look at and say, okay, we feel really comfortable getting into the electric vehicle market with these two bad boys. I would be interested to know from even a customer perspective, what has been the appetite for the Lightning and the Mach-E?
Well, just like everything else, the appetite is bigger than what we can provide right now. We've got many reservations on the Lightning, and the Mach-E, the people we've delivered these vehicles to, the customer satisfaction's through the roof. So that's exciting, especially on a new launch and a new product. There doesn't seem to be the hiccups that there sometimes can be in a new launch. So it's exciting. It's still a real small part of our business right now, but I'm sure as we move forward, it'll get bigger and bigger.
Do you anticipate it growing? Even as more of them hit the roadway, more people see them, the eyes start to open a little wider, go, oh my goodness, what is that thing?
Yeah, just by the demand that we're seeing and the amount of reservations, the amount of phone calls, but there's definitely going to be an expansion in that market, and I think Ford, as you heard yesterday, they're all in. They're definitely want to be at the forefront of that, and they're the right company to do it. So with all the new technology. Of course, the train station, they're going to use that as a technology hub there. And, we're all excited. We're all looking forward to it, and can't wait to see what the future brings, really.
Chatting with Matt Garko, the new vehicle sales manager at Bill Brown Ford. One of the vehicles that I think I've been most impressed with has been the Bronco. And look, getting into that particular category, it can be a challenging one because there are some vehicles that have been in that space for a long time. But that Bronco, let me tell you something. that thing, even since it's been re-released, even these last couple of releases have improved. I mean, you can tell the level of attention that has been paid into the Bronco. That is a car that I'm seeing way more of on the roadways, and it just, every time I see it, I'm like, you know, that is a good looking car.
Yeah, that's just proof that you know, Ford is still all in on the good old fashioned internal combustion engine, right?
Yeah.
So it is, they've really focused on that. It's really been, you know, again, the phone calls, the demand, the excitement around that vehicle. You know, if I had 500 of them in the on the lot today, there's, by the end of the week they'd be gone. So it's an exciting vehicle. It's fun to drive, and we really, the people that have them now and they finally have gotten them delivered, they're really going to have a fun summer because the whole vehicle comes apart. You know, just like old school, the doors come off, the roof comes off. It's be a lot of fun in the summertime.
Yeah, no doubt. In the meantime, we talked about a little bit the SUVs, even the full-size truck with the F-150 and the F-150 Lightning. People are really excited about those. But at the same time, I think, and maybe it's just me, and maybe you guys weren't surprised, but the Maverick has been quite a revelation for Ford. I think that's really come on really strong recently. And I was even reading a story that Honda Civic drivers were ditching their Civics for the Maverick. Those are two different vehicles.
Right.
But something is kind of speaking to the public about the Maverick. What do you think it is?
Well, that statement you just made is the most exciting part about the Maverick, is people that haven't been to the Blue Oval in quite a long time are coming over to us, and it really makes us happy that it's from Honda, especially. But yeah, our biggest crossover person is from either a Camry or a Civic, or I guess the competition to the domestic vehicle. So we're excited about it. They're getting as many to us as they can. Again, as you mentioned, it is a strain on the system with everything that's going on in the world. And then you had the semiconductor issue already. So
yeah,
it's everybody's looking forward as positively as we can. And you know, so far this year we've had a great year, and everybody's positive. So.
How was I got about a minute left here. How has the car buying experience or the car selling experience changed over the last two plus years?
Well, obviously there's been a big push and a big leaning towards ordering a vehicle. You know, we've been blessed and lucky to have vehicles in stock. You know, I think we've got about 150 in stock right now, where a lot of your smaller dealers and friends of ours are really struggling in that area. But it's really leaned more towards ordering your car, which has some benefits. You know, Ford's given $1,000 for anybody to order a car on top of all the other incentives that you already get. And you get exactly what you want. You know, a lot of times before I'll settle for that color because, you know, it's in stock and they don't have my color. Or, you know, there is some benefits, and we do, you know, I was just talking to my team the other day. We've never seen more happy customers leave the dealership once they do get their vehicle, show them all the new features, go over the product. I mean, customer satisfaction is through the roof. And I think a lot of it has to do with, you know, they're getting exactly what they want. And at the end of the day, when they get their vehicle, they're happy.
Matt Garco over at Bill Brown Ford. Best of luck, continued success, and thanks for the time. We'll talk to you soon.
Well, good luck to you filling in for a legend. Thanks for that.
No doubt about it. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Paul W. here. The days are getting longer, and before.
Thanks, Matt.
I appreciate it, Chris. Anytime.
Appreciate you. Thanks, man. We'll talk.
All right, thanks.
Okay, Chris. One more hour. Then it's Friday.
We're moving.
We're moving in the right direction. Thank God it's Friday. Okay. With regard to the segment coming up, Sean, have you seen Batman?
I have not yet. No, I'm going to take the kids, but have not seen it.
Dave Rieger is doing traffic for us. Of course, everybody knows that this morning. And Dave says he has seen Batman. So if you'd like him to weigh in on that with Greg Russell.
Okay.
He's had a preview of Batman. Isn't it like 3 hours?
Oh, I'm sure it's long.
I think it's very long.
I feel like all these newer movies are really long.
Yeah.
You know what I just finished for the first time? I had never seen it, and I just finished it. I just finished The Sopranos.
Oh, so good.
What a show.
Good. So good.
Oh.
Right. So listen to this. The company that runs the power plant says management is working at gunpoint. So picture that job. You're in a power plant that's been attacked, and now today you're working at gunpoint.
Kremlin says there's no talk of signing documents after a second round of negotiations.
So it's the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant.
Zaporizhia.
And they're working at gunpoint.
Where do you see that at?
I got that on CNN.
Okay, that's where I'm at too.
Ukrainian nuclear operator says management at the seized plant is working at gunpoint. Petro Koten, the head of the state-owned nuclear power generator, these Energodum.
Oh yeah, there it is. I see it now.
So they let the staff in to perform their duties.
Oh boy.
And there's more coming in. There's a school that's been destroyed, apartment buildings. Can you imagine what this will cost to repair? Let's see what, now I'm checking Fox too to see what they've got. What's the latest on Fox?
I think Fox has had better coverage of this during the day, and I think CNN has had better coverage of this at night.
I'm wondering if that's where how they staff it, or why that's
could be. Yeah, it could be.
Yeah. Yeah, Fox has got. Yeah. Pretty much the same, reporting pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Same facts this morning. It says Fox is saying Russian troops aiming to mine nuclear plant to blackmail the whole of Europe. Oh, jeez. That's the thing, because if this thing were to have something go wrong there, pretty much all of Europe would be affected, correct?
I mean, a huge portion of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would think. I don't know what the radius would be considered, but
it's got to be huge.
It's got to be huge.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be for sure. I would think it would be at least all of Ukraine and into Russia.
I think probably Poland. I think anything in that area. Belarus.
It was very telling that the one thing that the Russians always say is how the West is preoccupied and terrified by the thought of nuclear war, and they just don't feel that way in Russia. that their whole mutual assured destruction and everything is that's just something that they don't think about, and you really you have to wonder, and I don't know if I want to tap dance up to that line, but you have to wonder if they know that about the West and they're using the West's own fears against them.
That's an interesting.
I also don't think that they realize how. I don't know that they realize that, like, because of the disinformation, because of the suppression of information, I don't know that they really have a grasp on the nuclear arsenal that a lot of these the countries have.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if that even plays into the psyche, because, like, are they aware that they raise their nuclear defense system to high alert? Like, do they even know that? I don't know. I don't know what they're being told.
Yeah, because we did see yesterday that all of their news organizations that were kind of operating kind of independently, they're shutting them down in Russia.
Yeah, so
in an
they
effort
had
to control the information, right?
They had the radio station just went off the air.
Yeah.
They liquidated the
that.
radio station, and apparently the last words on the radio station was like "no more war" or "stop the war" or something like that.
So the question is, do you think that younger Russians still have figured out a way to have access to the outside world? Even though they're trying to
So if you're
insulate.
self-employed,
Yeah, I
or part of
do,
the
and I
gig
think those are the
economy, or you
people that
just
are
want a plan
protesting.
You're happy with. You can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. Very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need: 855-51-BIBLE. That's 855-51-BIBLE. 855-51-BIBLE.
The outside world from Russia like they have in China. I guess that's been a big problem.
It's the WJR Road Show with Paul W. Smith, presented by Tajin Automotive and Lear. Today's road show is at Ford Motor Company. Now filling in for Paul, here's Chris Renwick.
Good to have you with us, and we continue to think about Paul and pray for Paul and his family as he spends some time with Sweet Marie. So he's doing that, and we're holding down the fort for him. Myself, Ann Thomas, Sean Belegian. But we continue to follow this situation in Ukraine for you, and we've gotten some interesting developments this morning. One of them it pertains to the largest power plant in Europe. The Zaporizhzhia power plant, which is kind of located south central, I would say, Ukraine. And we're getting word now that Russian troops are aiming to, quote, mine the nuclear power plant to blackmail Europe. Staff at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant sent a message to Ukrainian media and government authorities warning that the Russian troops that took the plant are trying to lay down explosives in order to blackmail Europe, basically saying, if you don't give us what we want, we're going to blow the whole thing up.
Jeez.
And you know, this is what's scary about this is, you know, Ann and Sean, countries have anti-nuclear weapon defense systems. So if somebody were to launch a nuclear weapon, we've got defense systems that would work against that would actively work to either attack it in the air, or mitigate the explosion or whatever. There are systems that are in place for that. There's nothing in place to mitigate the explosion of Europe's largest power plant, and the ramifications of that. I mean, you look at Chernobyl, right?
Oh, yes.
And the 100-mile radius that was, I think, or 1,000-mile. You're dealing with something much, much larger than Chernobyl. You're dealing with something much bigger, and they're outfitting it, allegedly, with explosive devices.
And the workers this morning are working at gunpoint, Chris. They were allowed into the facility, the morning shift, and they're now working at gunpoint. So can you imagine? You're in a nuclear power plant, as you point out, the largest in Europe, the 9th largest in the world, 6 reactors, has the capability of powering 4 million homes. And you report for work this morning, and now you're working at gunpoint. This facility was attacked last night. There was a fire. Thankfully, it's out. But this is a very, very tense situation they're dealing with.
This is a bit like, you know, this diplomacy game is a bit like cards, because we have to ask ourselves, is he bluffing? Because, you know, one of the things that we were talking about during the break is not that long ago, Putin and the Russians said, look, the nuclear option, it isn't one, because that's mutually assured destruction. And just a couple of days ago, they also talked about how the West in particular is preoccupied with this notion of nuclear war and nuclear holocaust and everything. You wonder if they're using the perceived weakness against us. Is that something that he would really do, to weaponize this and say, Hey, listen, we're hurting, so everybody's going to be hurting. That's the part where I bring up cards is, does Chris really have 3 Cowboys in his hand right now? What, I think I'm going to call him and see what happens. It's such a terrifying prospect.
The chances are, yes, I'm a terrible bluffer. Number one. Number two, I part of me believes no. There's no way. There's no way that they would resort to nuclear warfare. None. I think that's a dangerous road to go down, because it's not like you're the only ones with these big guns. There's a lot of folks around the world that have these capabilities too. So I don't believe that Putin would go to that extreme. I think most of his retaliatory actions, if he were to go down that way, would be cyber warfare, would be blocking down grids, blocking down, jamming our banking systems, those type of things to really disrupt our way of life, as opposed to, potentially, nuclear warfare. So but with all that being said, you're right, Sean. You don't know what he's got. You don't know what he's got in his hand. You don't know what he's thinking. And so that's really the dangerous part in all of this. And again, we talked about kind of the epicenters of the cultural epicenters that are under attack now. I think we're starting to see every day, we're starting to see a clearer picture of the Russian kind of game plan. And at first it kind of felt a little bumbled, kind of felt a little, messy. But now everything's tightening up. Everything is they are targeting specific areas, targeting specific locations. They took Chernobyl early on, and now they're taking this power plant in south central Ukraine. And so I think we're starting to see kind of the game plan. Let's make sure we take over some big, powerful areas that we can maybe weaponize. And let's include the element of psychological warfare. And eventually let's get to Kyiv. Let's throw this regime out, or get him out by any means necessary. And let's install the puppet regime and get this thing rolling. I continue to be really impressed with Volodymyr Zelensky. I think that inevitably Kyiv's taken. I think inevitably Russia installs the regime that Vladimir Putin wants. But the resistance is really going to be fierce. And I think that's where a lot of this battling is going to take place.
Well, and it's one of those things, there's no end to it, Chris, because the one thing that you've seen out of the Ukrainian people is they are going to continue to fight, just as they did both the Soviets and the Nazis back in World War II. They're going to take to the fields. They're going to, embark on a course of guerrilla warfare. And this is going to be something that is going to be a bogged down process for many, many years to come. I agree with you in the eventuality. It would be great to think that somehow, some way, Zelensky's regime survives this. I just don't think that's plausible.
And I think there were a lot of hopes that these conversations that were being had in Belarus were going to pay some sort of dividend, that they were going to come to the table and try to find some sort of middle ground where we could sign a peace treaty, or we could work whatever this thing is out. And according to a Kremlin spokesperson, there is no talk of Russia and Ukraine signing any formal documents after a second round of discussions that took place yesterday between the two sides. And I don't, as maybe as hopeful as we were, I don't think that we were expecting any sort of negotiations to go to the terms of signing a document to end this thing, because it's pretty clear what Russia wants, and they want a full, complete takeover of Ukraine.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right, Chris. We did see that they apparently agreed to keep the refugees safe. They established some kind of a safe corridor, but we shall see what happens with that today and throughout the weekend, because that's a little bit dicey too.
Well, and there was so much talk about not hurting civilians, right? Vladimir Putin came out and said, "Look, we're not targeting civilians. That's not our aim here. We're not targeting the people of Ukraine." Yet you've got people at gunpoint at a power plant. That seems pretty cut and dry that you're targeting civilians. They're not
and
military
you're attacking
members.
apartment buildings.
apartment buildings, schools, churches.
Right.
Yeah, you're going to have to pardon me if I don't take Vladimir Putin at his word. His word is real good the last 3 weeks.
Good point.
WJR's Road Show continues on talking about Ford Motor Company today. It's sponsored by our good friends Lear and Tajan Automotive. Back next with more on the Paul W. Smith Show. Chris Renwick this morning on WJR.
Michigan winters are tough on your roof of your home.
Okay, so I've got a few Batman
That was funny, Sean.
questions.
I like that.
Yeah, that was good, Sean. Few Batman questions.
Okay.
What Batman movie is this in the world of how many? And Sean, have you seen them all?
I think so. There's so many. I really like the Christopher Nolan, the three Christopher Nolan ones
Black
with
Knights.
Christian Bale. I really like those ones. The original run that started in the 80s and ended with that George Clooney debacle. It got so cheesy. Is it 8 now?
I don't know.
Well, see, so as I am no comic aficionado. I don't really understand how this works, but I think like this is like they have like different timelines and they're in like different, like they're not all set in the same place or like world. Like they're all kind of like in different what do you call like a parallel universe almost. Like they're in the like you're in the same Gotham City, but it's like not the same. So like the Christopher Nolan stuff is not the same as the Michael Keaton stuff is not the same as the, as this one, I think. So like, this is like the first one of this, whatever this is. But I could be totally wrong. That's kind of how I interpret it when I read a story about it.
I wonder if it'll be a big blockbuster.
Darker. It's more like he's not so much like I think he's got a little more issues. Like he's a little more of like a kind of like the jagged edge type of guy. So I don't know exactly.
So how does this work? Does Dave jump in the stream or can he just talk through a microphone? He's in studio
with more convenient ways of getting it.
I don't know.
We've been for
Where do they do? They do
years.
traffic upstairs though, right?
Well, he's going to do traffic. He's doing traffic in 7. On
I'm
7
not
with
sure,
Brian.
actually. I can reach out to him.
Maybe Brian could tell us.
Well, he can just get on the.
He can just go on a mic, right?
Yeah, in the
miles an
studio.
hour, barely keeping up. But to cruise through challenges, you need
Yeah,
someone
because
who's
he's right
there
with
you.
Brian.
That's what Del.
Chris.
Okay.
He's with Brian in Master Control there on
So are
7.
we only talking about Batman?
I believe so. Yes.
Oh, okay.
But you can ask him, whatever else you want to talk about with regard to movies, any other movies that are out that are worth seeing. He's able to chime in on anything. Now, I think he's supposed to be joining us here, Greg on StreamYard. So.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm here.
There he is.
What's up, Greg?
Hi, Craig.
How are y'all?
How are you?
How are you?
Good.
Chris was asking, are we only talking about Batman? I said, well, that's up to you guys. You can.
We
talk
doing
about
Batman?
anything.
Is that the topic today?
Yeah, that's pretty much the main one right there.
You got the shirt on too.
I like that.
Oh, look at that.
Way to go.
I was trying to find my cowl. It's over here somewhere.
How is it? Is it good?
I enjoyed it. I mean, it's a fast-paced 3 hours. And what I mean by
3
that is
hours.
3 hours.
3 hours. But you don't really notice as compared to some movies after 20 minutes, you're going, when is this going to be over? My God. This one moves. Pattinson actually does a good job. You do not see Edward from Twilight in the movie at all.
Oh, thank God.
Which was my main concern.
How much popcorn would you have to have for 3 hours?
Oh,
You might have to have a whole meal.
At least a bucket, right? It's got to be. You measure
Like a
popcorn
big
in
bucket.
buckets. Like it's got to be a bucket. At least a bucket.
And probably a couple of hot dogs. And for sure, go back a couple of times probably to get your, pop refilled.
Oh, you're a hot dog guy at the movies, huh?
Oh,
Greg?
love it. Love them.
I don't know that I've ever had a hot dog at a
I've
movie.
never.
No.
I have to meet you one day at the Imagine. We'll go there. We'll watch the movie and have hot dogs.
I would love to see a movie with you, Greg.
It'd be like going to a
I
Tiger
would
game,
too.
Yes.
Wait,
Yes.
are the hot dogs as good as a Tiger game?
No, I mean they're good. Like
They're cheaper.
Oh yeah. The ballpark's like $15, and you're going, and the buns how much extra? Okay,
Charge you $1.50 for a little packet of mustard.
Wait, do you have candy too at the, like, do you have a particular candy you might get into or no?
Every once in a while,
Back in the 30s, maybe a little rain and snow Monday. From the Weather Channel, I'm meteorologist Ray Station on News 760 WJR.
I forgot they were in my pocket.
Welcome
I'm
back to the
sorry.
WJR Road Show with Paul W. Smith, presented by Tajin Automotive and Lear. Today's Road Show is at Ford Motor Company. Once again, substituting for Paul W. Smith, here's Chris Renwick.
I got to tell you, it's one of my favorite things about filling in for Paul. And I always hope, well, maybe it's a Friday. Because if it's a Friday, I get to talk with Greg Russell.
Hey.
Movie Show Plus.
All right.
Movie show plus. I love it. Greg, how are you, my friend?
Doing well, Chris. How about yourself?
It's nice to see you. Yeah, happy Friday to you. Look, I think there are a lot of movies out. I don't know. But there's really only one that people are talking about, and it's the new Batman flick.
Right, with Robert Pattinson as the Batman. And, one of the first questions people always ask is, it's 3 hours long?
Yeah.
I got to tell you, it's kind of like a fast-paced 3 hours. I mean,
Okay.
it goes, quickly, where you're not sitting there constantly looking at your watch. I'd mentioned before that sometimes you watch a movie, oh my goodness, is this thing over with yet?
Yeah.
But this one, you want to follow through.
Is this, are we seeing Robert Pattinson as Edward from Twilight? Are we seeing him as the cat from Harry Potter? Who is this Robert Pattinson? What version is this?
This is his new 3.0. He's actually Bruce Wayne as a darker person. And I thought the same thing too. I'm thinking, oh gosh, here he is. He's playing another bat. But at least, in Twilight, he was an actual bat. And this one, he's, the guy with the suit.
Yeah.
But he becomes his own person, where you don't really look at him as, Edward, especially from Twilight. He's dark, he's brooding, like you'd expect the Batman to be. But I think it's because of the way his hair is now, and just because he's a little bit more mature looking. Yeah, you see him as being Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. Or Dave Rieger, who's filling in for Dana today doing traffic, he has seen the movie.
I have, yeah.
And you have some thoughts on it. Can you give us a spoiler-free review? Can we trust you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought that it would. I give it like a B-, C+. I did plan to go into it with an open mind because I'm such a big fan of the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight series. I just felt that, as with James Bond movies and Batman movies, I like a lot of the tech that goes into it. And since this is only his second year as Batman in this movie, there wasn't I thought there was a lack of tech, I guess. That was it. And also there were things that Batman did in this movie because he was learning how to be the Batman that you don't normally see. Would you agree with that, Greg?
Oh yeah, because like you said, as far as the tech goes, he's kind of like the Batman who doesn't have the card to Best Buy to go out and buy certain things,
right?
But he's working on doing things more physically and all like that. And like you said, he's working on it. It's kind of like a whole I don't want to say revamping because that'll throw people off, but just a whole reworking, of the Batman character. So it's kind of like, this is the guy, not necessarily forget about the other guys, but we're working on a whole new person.
Yeah, I liked it. It was very dark, and it was, I think, done the way that they wanted it to be, like the graphic novels.
Yeah.
But like I said, I miss like, all the cool stuff that the Batmobile always has and all the cool stuff that Batman always has.
Yeah.
So,
well, I understand we've got a clip, so let's take a listen here from the Batman.
All right.
Fear is a tool. When that light hits the sky, it's not just a call. It's a warning. This is a powder keg, and Rither's the match.
Who are you under there?
I'm vengeance.
Oh, I got, here's what's always great about Batman. Batman's great, and he's got all the cool stuff, whatever. But it's, to me, it's always the villains in Batman that really make the story kind of what it is. Who are the main antagonists of this story?
And so we've got this time the Joker, and a couple other people, make like little appearances, I guess, getting you ready for future episodes or future movies like that. But yeah, he's the main one right there, and he's putting out the jokes. And Dave, did you try to follow along with the jokes that were put, not joke, the riddles that were put out there, and that's why I meant the Riddler.
Yeah, the Riddler was very good. I thought Colin Farrell, who I had no idea until the end.
Oh,
Then he played the Penguin. The makeup was incredible. I also liked John Turturro as Carmine Falcone. I thought he was really good. But yeah, I thought the riddles were great. Of course, nobody knows what the riddles are. Batman gets it in like 2 seconds. So that was your typical Bruce Wayne Batman, that he figured out the riddles very easily. And I thought they were well done.
Yeah, I agree with you, because like I said, I'm trying to sit there myself and figure it out. Okay, ABC equals 1, 2, 3. No, not wrong.
Yeah.
Wrong.
So how do you grade this thing? What's the Greg Russell stamp of approval here?
I know we normally go, like we said, to 4, and then even listening like with what Dave said, it's kind of like, we'll give it a nice 3, 3.5, like that, where you'll be entertained. And this is DC's way of trying to get things going again, because Batman is the biggest character they have as far as trying to reboot their franchise, because they're still working on Superman, and that's just it. And Dave, you might agree with this as well, where Superman has always been such a goody guy, where now most superheroes are coming up a little bit more on the darker side. They've got to figure out some ways to get him back into action.
I did also think that Zoe Kravitz did the Catwoman. She played Catwoman very well.
She did.
I liked her character, but I think that Pattinson did a nice job. I just thought that he was just a little he was very depressed. He was just very and then almost every scene it was raining. Gotham is just
Seattle. It's in the northeast.
Yeah, basically Seattle. But I think that he's just it kind of threw me for a surprise, which was kind of cool, in that this is a story that doesn't normally go along with the regular Batman origin stories that we've seen.
Yeah.
Where it's like you're seeing Batman learn how to be Batman. He's learning. Like you'll see in some of the scenes, some of the things that happen that don't normally happen to Batman. He's learning. So that was kind of cool to see Bruce Wayne learn how to be Batman.
Right.
I really enjoyed Christopher Nolan's vision. Is this kind of along that line? Going back to Batman Begins and the origins and all that. Is it kind of following that arc?
It's different. It's different than that. Yeah, okay. I love the Christopher Nolan one too, but this isn't your typical showing his parents getting killed in the alley, and Batman Begins when he goes and trains with Ra's al Ghul and all that. It doesn't. It's totally different.
No, and absolutely, yeah. Like you said, it's he is his parents' child, but it is not that kind of like same story we're accustomed to seeing in regards to where he came from.
And we saw the trilogy that Christopher Nolan put together, which in my mind was fantastic.
Yeah.
Does this set up for future installments of this particular storyline?
It does.
Oh, absolutely. You'll get to the end and go, okay, we know what's kind of like almost coming next.
Very cool. I'm excited. So this is a 3 for you, Greg.
Yeah.
And this is something that you recommend seeing. And how was this? This isn't supposed to be released on any of the streaming services, right? This is exclusively for the theaters,
right? To start with, yeah. Yep. So you'll have to go out to the theaters this weekend.
And it is 3 hours. No previews. It is 3 hours.
Right.
It's a full 3 hours.
Oh yeah. 3 hours.
Well, I'm excited that you say it moves along. It sounds like it's pretty action packed. It sounds like it's a new story. And I think this from what it sounds like, it's getting pretty good reviews around the country. And maybe if you haven't been back to the movies since the pandemic, maybe this is the one that gets you out there.
This might be it. I mean, now again, more things are beginning to open up. People are beginning to feel better about getting out and seeing things. Yeah, guaranteed a lot more folks will be going out probably this weekend to see it. I mean, one, because it's a Batman movie, superhero, and also it's going to just get you out of the house.
Yeah. Greg Russell, always good to talk with you, my man.
It's a pleasure.
So nice to see you, and thanks for the inside scoop of the Batman. I can't wait to see it.
You got it. Look forward to hearing back from you what you thought.
There he is, Greg Russell of Movie Show Plus here on the Paul W. Smith Show as we continue this Friday morning right here on WJR.
Paul W. here. Everyone has heard about the PPP program. Everyone has heard about the PPP program.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you guys. I loved it. This was great seeing each other again too.
I
liked
know. My God, we needed to do more of this.
I was going to say, hopefully we will. We will. And next week is going to be my first day back in 2 years inside Channel 4. So whenever things are allowed, like back at JR, I will definitely come in one Friday morning. That'd be great.
Oh, awesome.
Outstanding.
All right, Greg. Thanks,
Guys,
man. Good
you got it.
seeing you. Take
Good
care.
seeing you guys. Take care. Bye, Ann.
Oh, we got Izzo next. Jeez, it's 8:30.
I know. Heading toward the weekend, Chris.
Jeez, oh, Pete's.
And we are going to be back in the studios pretty soon here.
Yeah,
It's
pretty
going to
soon.
be exciting, yeah. Yeah, it's going to be pretty exciting. They're almost finished. Did you go up and take a look at them, Chris, when you were?
Oh, yeah.
When you were in this week?
Yeah, Keith was showing me around a little bit.
Yeah. Awesome. Beautiful.
Yeah, they're really nice. They are a complete 180 from what we had. That's for sure.
Sean, I know you're looking forward to being back in person with us, but I know there's one little glitch is you're going to have to get up a little earlier. Sean was giving me an earful last weekend, Chris.
I don't know how you guys do it.
He's a little concerned about how early we get up.
I don't know.
It
How you
is
guys
a
do it.
problem.
I don't know how you do it.
It's
I
a
don't-
problem.
It is. Look, it's unbelievable. It's and again, I'm kind of in a different boat because I've got a
It's
6-week-old.
unbelievable.
So it's actually not like that crazy for me to get up right now.
Yeah, you're
but,
already
like,
up. What's the big deal?
But like then I can go back to sleep for a couple hours. No, it's like my alarm goes off at 3:30, and I got to take a solid half-hour shower to wake up, and then then it's like then we're off to the races.
I did mornings at the Fan for 2 years. You never get used to it. You just never.
No.
And then after 10 years of not doing mornings, the difference now is like even on the weekends, I cannot, no way, no how. Even if I went to bed at 3:00 in the morning, I cannot sleep past 7:15.
Sure.
My body clock is just like, nope, it's 7:15. That's it. You're up. It's
You guys,
crazy.
I've been doing this for 25 years.
I don't know how you do it. I honestly don't know how you do it.
I have no idea.
I don't know how you do it. It is. I mean, look, it's cool. It's incredible to like 9 o'clock and you're like, huh, guess I'm done for a while. Like,
right.
That's pretty
That's
crazy.
cool, right? But here's the thing. Little backroom information for our Facebook viewers this morning.
Yeah.
When you're working from home, you don't have to get up as early.
That's true.
As when you have to go down to the station.
That's
when
true.
you have to go down to the station, you have to get up about an hour earlier.
Yeah. So like when I came in this week, I was up. I set my alarm for 3:30.
Yeah, that's about right.
3:35, 3:40, and 3:45.
Sure. Yep.
And then I'm like, I gotta be up at like, I gotta be up by like 3:45.
Yeah, 4 at the latest.
And then I'm in the shower for a half hour,
Which
and
is
then
extreme, by the way. That's a
just
little
like
much.
as cold as I can make the shower because I have to shock my body into being awake.
Okay.
And then I'm like 45 minutes from the station. So, it was funny, Sean, because every day, like I got there about 5 o'clock, and the last day I came in, I showed up about 15 seconds before Ann.
I get there at 5:30.
So it was slowly getting later and later every morning in the span of a week.
And then he finally said, could I work from home, Ann?
I'm gonna take this show on the road.
I can't take the naps because what happens is then I get in the rut of, well, I can't go to sleep until midnight. And then there's that awful, vibe that you fall into.
Yep,
so
it's
it's about 1 o'clock in
gymnastics.
the afternoon that I have to go physically do something or I'm going to fall asleep. So I'll go take, like a 45-minute walk around the neighborhood, whatever the case may be, go ride the bike or something, because it's much easier for me then to say 9:45, you're shutting it down. That's it. And so now that's the good cycle that I'm in, except as I told Ann, Chris, it all got ruined at Christmas when we had some time off. Well, suddenly went to, I'll stay up till 10 tonight. I'll stay up to 10:30 tonight. I'll stay up till 12 tonight. My son and I are going to watch a movie, and you have to start that process over when we're back to work.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it's madness.
It's madness. Well, everybody going back into new studios is going to be like starting a new job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you're going to be kind of
all at once. Everybody's going to be starting a new job at once.
And the equipment's all different and new. And so our listeners will probably get a big kick out of us as we stumble through the first week or two.
Right.
But it'll be just like riding a bike. We'll be fine.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so Coach is not answering, Brian says. I'm going to text Coach. Okay. We have to sometimes send a little reminder here.
Especially after tough games.
Steve Courtney is there for you guys to chat with him, though.
Okay.
So Brian will tell us when he's ready. You guys can kind of analyze what's going on. The tournament, the Big Ten tournament starts, I thought I saw next Wednesday, the 9th. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that sounds right.
All right. So I just texted Coach. So hopefully he can chime in here.
All right, we'll start with Steve then.
Yeah, Steve. Yeah, Brian says just start with Steve.
Cool.
But if you think about it, if they were in Columbus, oh boy, at what time would they would have gotten back?
Hopkey is here to help you from design
Guys,
to
Coach
final
isn't answering, but
installation.
Steve is standing by.
Hopkey uses
Got it.
3D virtual technology.
I'll
and
get
has
in your
a
ear if he
5,000
calls
square foot showroom
Okay,
with
sounds good.
openly displayed products for you to choose from. For your free in-home consultation, call 833-MIKE-HOPKEY. That's 833-MIKE-HOPKEY. Or visit KopkeyHome.com.
Welcome back to the WJR Road Show with Paul W. Smith. Presented by Tajin Automotive and Lear. Today's Road Show is at Ford Motor Company. Once again in for Paul, here's Chris Renwick.
A tough outing for the Spartans last night. They had to travel down to Columbus to take on the Buckeyes, and they lose it 80-69. And Steve Courtney's here with Sean Belegian and I. And Steven, Coach looked at times. I don't know that I've seen him like that before. He looked very frustrated, and not in the angry, I'm frustrated way. It was more of like a defeated way. Like I think he's tried everything, and it was like he didn't have any answers.
No, you're absolutely right, Chris. Good morning to you, Sean, my friend. What's happening? Yeah, this has been a tough stretch for the Spartans. We know this. The Big Ten giveth and the Big Ten taketh away. Now, last Monday morning, we were having a nice conversation with Magnum TI about the win last Saturday over then number 4 Purdue. And then we have disappointment, a lot of it in Ann Arbor. And as you allude to, Chris, last night in Columbus. And, the Spartan team, they've been guilty more times than not, especially on the road, of slow starts. Last night in Columbus, people really hadn't even settled in their seats yet. And next thing you know, the Buckeyes build themselves a 13-0 lead in the first 2 minutes, 47 seconds. And the Spartans will get it down to 2. Then Ohio State goes on a 16-8 run to take a 43-33 lead at the half. A lot of energy trying to get back into this thing, and they just couldn't do it.
Steve, it is amazing when you look at this stretch. 3 of the last 4 games, very un-Spartan-like, very Coach Izzo, not Coach Izzo-esque basketball, giving 80 or more points up in 3 of the last 4.
Well, and the benchmark of a Tom Izzo coach team, and we've talked about it, Sean, is defense and rebounding. Well, last night, you take a look, and if you just looked at the numbers without knowing what the final score was, Spartans shot 45% from the field overall last night, 50% from three-point range, and they out-rebounded the Buckeyes. But they did not get the W. And I think there's a little bit of frustration. You go back to the loss in Ann Arbor, and it was a convincing loss. There's no doubt about it. Hunter Dickinson just able to do whatever the hell he wanted to do. And that's when Tom said he was a little bit disappointed with the leadership of this team. Well, we know this in sport. Leadership is not appointed. You can't go to Marcus Bingham. You can't go to Malik Hall and say, you're going to be a leader. You've got to take that upon yourself. And I don't know if there's a Spartan on this roster that has taken a step in that direction. And I think that's what disappoints Tom Izzo.
Yeah. And I think, from Tom's perspective, it is like, I think that he's got enough coaching experience. He's been doing it for a couple of years that I think he's got a wealth of knowledge on how to energize a team, how to get a team going. And Steve, I just feel like he's exhausted all of the things that he's got at his disposal. Call it a bag of tricks if you will. I think that's what I used earlier. But I think he's pulled every rabbit out of the hat trying to get these guys going, whether it was a few weeks ago not making these players available for a press conference because they didn't play well, and you don't get to participate in the next part of this process when you don't play well, and calling, like you mentioned, some of the elder classmen out for their lack of leadership. And then last night, I mean, you're right. When I missed the first couple of minutes of game, I got there, it was 13-0. I mean, you just can't dig yourself into that kind of hole and expect to win a lot of games, unfortunately.
No, in particular on the road in the Big Ten, that is a recipe for disaster. And the Spartans have seen themselves in that situation on the road quite a bit. I think yesterday, and I agree with you, Chris, just looking at Tom's body language as that tilt unfolded last night, it was one of complete resignation. You could easily make the argument, and this is his 27th year. Believe me, Tom Izzo has pretty much seen everything possible in any given college basketball season. So he calls out the leadership after the loss in Ann Arbor. And last night, it was almost as though he was sitting on a bench saying, okay, let's see who steps up.
He's just all shoulders. He's like, I don't know what to do here.
Well, and, here's the thing. These are obviously the waning games of the regular season schedule in the Big Ten. Dog days, no doubt about it. We do know this, that the Spartans will conclude the regular season at the beautiful Breslin Center, 4:30 tip Sunday afternoon against the Maryland Terrapins. Now, that is a game certainly. The Terrapins going in at 15-15 overall, 7-12 in conference play. But know this, they've won 2 straight. And on February 27th, they knocked off Ohio State 75-60 at home. So, in preparation for the Big Ten tournament, this Spartan team needs something good to happen. And by golly, that needs to go down Sunday.
Steve, one of the places you're seeing teams attack the Spartans and with great success, as you mentioned, Hunter Dickinson. Last night, it was Joey Brunk averaging about 2 points a game. And for a while, he looked like one of the best centers in the game. Bigs are really hurting the Spartan team right now.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And Branham also had a ball game with 22 points. You take a look at it, 4 of the 5 starters for Ohio State end up in double figures. And, that goes back, Sean, to what we were talking about. The battle cry of Spartan basketball is defense. And it has been disappointing over the last couple when you see what Hunter Dickinson did and, a couple of the Buckeyes last night. But, that being said, again, and this goes back to what we were saying about Tom Izzo being able to get this team to regroup. That being said, you still have work to do. And remember, wasn't all that long ago, this Spartan team was in the midst of a 9-game win streak. And even at that particular point in time, Tom Izzo was very adamant that, look, this is a good team. We still have a lot of work to do to be a great team. Yeah. Do they have it within themselves to make the corrections? Well, you know what? That's a great thing about competition, isn't it? Somebody, anybody has got to step up.
Who is that, Steve? Who steps up here?
Well, you know what? This is a talented Michigan State team, Chris. And, you got some talent. Marcus Bingham Jr., he finishes with 11 last night. I think that's a great place to start. We've been waiting for Joey Hauser to have that breakout game. He finishes with 9 last night. Malik Hall has come through big at times. Gabe Brown is starting to find his stroke. He finishes with 13 last night, 3 of 4 from beyond the arc. So, you lead by example, but, it'd be nice to see this Spartan team a little bit more animated on the floor and somebody step up and take that leadership role.
Steve Courtney, nice to talk with you, my friend.
Chris, always a pleasure there, laddie. Sean, hope all is well with you and yours, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Make a play, Steve.
Always. You got to. Somebody make a play.
Steve Courtney here on the Paul W. Smith Show. We continue next on WJR.
Now it's more important than ever to have.
Well, maybe Coach didn't get in till early this morning and slept in or something. He never sleeps in, though.
No, he's not sleeping. He's game planning.
Do you know that he gets up really, really early to make sure? Sometimes he personally takes the guys and makes sure they get to class. You talk about a great guy.
He sure is.
And a great coach. I mean, what a leader.
Yeah, I mean,
he's the best.
He is the best. I mean, really.
Yeah.
Really
it's about a lot more than basketball with him.
Sure.
It really is.
So he's going to tell these guys, if you don't win this next game, you're not getting a ride to class. It's like, you're going to have to walk in the cold. That's what you're going to have to do.
I think he's going to tell them if they do not win this next game. They're probably already practicing this morning.
I'm sure they are. Yeah.
This didn't work out. They
didn't even go home last night. I got back to the Brez and put the unis on again.
Yeah, I know. This next story with Lloyd, here's Lloyd, is a good story, but it seems to kind of have gotten lost with all the other big news. Hi, Lloyd.
Hey, what story is that got lost?
Good morning, Lloyd.
I'm saying your next story coming up is a big story. It's a good story, but it seems like it's kind of lost in the headlines.
It is.
With all the other stuff going on.
Yep.
This the whole Ukraine thing is
it's kind of taking over.
Yeah,
Lindsey Graham was on TV yesterday. He said somebody ought to just take him out. Just he said it.
Did he really?
That was a great Lindsey Graham impression too, Lloyd. I loved that. That was wonderful.
Yeah, I was like, did he just say what I just think he said? Yes, he did.
Wow.
Surprised that isn't all over the headlines this morning.
He said somebody should just take him out.
Well, it is kind of an interesting conversation in the sense that I've been saying all week to Chris and Sean, well, what happens with him? Like, does he just go sit down at that big desk again and just continues to have a nice day after this?
Good question.
And
what a quote. Lloyd, I just looked it up. How does this end? Somebody in Russia has to step up to the plate and take this guy out.
Yep.
Is there a Brutus in Russia?
But I mean, seriously, does that ever really happen? Could that ever happen?
I don't know. Those oligarchs, man, they're a little unhappy over there. They talk.
They are. They're not making money anymore.
Like, dude, you messing with my money now, okay?
No, and we're trying to take their yachts.
Yeah, you taking my yacht, man. I can't have my little girls over there and stuff anymore, man. Come on.
They weren't thinking this through.
No, they didn't think this through. No, not at all.
We don't like Vladimir Putin that much.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I haven't seen my mistress in 2 weeks. Somebody take this guy out.
Yeah. Come on, man.
It's terrible.
I looked up a little bit about him. He's divorced and he has 2 beautiful.
I wonder why.
He has 2 beautiful daughters. Very successful. One daughter is a doctor. I'm not sure what the other one does, but it's kind of like you're living in an alternate universe with this guy.
No, yeah.
Now, see, that is an SNL skit. What happened leading up to Vladimir Putin getting divorced? That is an SNL skit.
Oh, wow.
Didn't he upgrade with like a gymnast or something? If I'm not mistaken, I think he's with a former gymnast or something.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm just not impressed with the fighters. You know, the fact that he has nukes is one thing, but I'm just not impressed with with his group. You know, if they came across, you know, some people who knew how to really fight, who had the planes and the beat the bombers and stuff like that, I think his guys would get wiped out. Now he has a nuke just like we do, so I mean, you know, you got to respect that part. But you know, these guys, I don't know if they've been trained properly. They're calling their mamas and stuff. You know, they got captured and they're calling home to mama.
Milder.
Some of them don't want to fight.
No.
Sunday, partly cloudy and windy, 63. Colder Monday. From a Weather Channel, I'm meteorologist Ray Stagik on News Talk 760 WJR.
Welcome back to the WJR Road Show with Paul W. Smith, presented by Tajin Automotive and Lear. Today's road show is at Ford Motor Company. Once again, substituting for Paul W. Smith, here's Chris Renwick.
It's been a real pleasure to bring you the road show this morning in place of my friend Paul W. And wrap it about Ford today. And next Friday, we will talk to some good folks over at Toyota. In the meantime, tell me if you've heard this story before. The Michigan legislature passes a couple of bills only to have it vetoed when it gets to the governor's desk. It's like Groundhog's Day. It's another situation we find ourselves in as the Republican-controlled Senate voted to send a $2.5 billion tax cut proposal to the governor's desk, and she has said she will veto it. WJR senior news analyst Lloyd Jackson taking a deep dive into that story for us. Good morning, Lloyd.
Good morning, Chris. Yeah, the Republican-led legislature gave final approval to a veto-destined bill that would cut Michigan's income tax, expand tax exemptions for older people, and largely restore a per-child tax credit that was eliminated about 10 years or so ago. Governor Whitmer has said that the GOP-written package of tax cuts is unsustainable and would lead to spending cuts while the next budget is negotiated in the coming months. Now, she has proposed more targeted tax breaks for retirees and lower income workers as the state runs about a $7 billion surplus. Senate Republicans who sent the legislation to the governor on a party line 22-15 vote have said that the tax cuts should be broad and significant because everyone is facing high inflation. Democrats say reducing the income tax would benefit the wealthy more than those who make less. Now, according to the bills, the income tax would be cut to 3.9%. It's currently at 4.25%. It would also lower the age for filers to exempt up to $20,000 as individuals or $40,000 if filing jointly between the ages of 62 and 67. It would also allow an additional exemption for retirement income not covered by the standard senior deduction and create a $500 per child tax credit. Now, in a letter to legislative leaders requesting that talks began, the governor said that she has some serious concerns about the measure, saying that while she will not support legislation that forces cuts to schools and road repairs and public safety, she is encouraged that the House and Senate agree in principle that putting money back in the pockets of Michigan retirees and working families is priority. The governor has proposed restoring Michigan's earned income tax credit to 20% of the federal credit, up from 6%, and gradually repealing a 2011 change that reduced an exemption for retirement income for people born after 1945. And she says those qualifying for the earned income tax credit would get an additional $300, while retirees would save more than $1,000 under the plan that would cut revenue by roughly $750 million annually by the 2025 tax year.
So the governor says now is the time for us to come together and begin formal negotiations over state budget and tax policy decisions that are focused on putting money back in the pockets of people and making responsible investments that will feel strong, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. Isn't that kind of what they're doing here?
Yeah, that's what it seems like. She just wants more targeted, and the GOP wants it more broad. And I remember it was on either Paul's show or the All Talk program where they had, I believe, Mr. Shirky on, and he was saying that, yeah, we want these cuts to be, broad because everybody is catching it right now. Everybody's going through it. Everybody's, feeling the high inflation. And so they wanted these cuts to be more broad, while the governor wanted more targeted tax cuts because she says we can't sustain it if it's broad.
State Senator Eric Nesbitt of Lawton, who is the sponsor of the bill, labeled it historic, while Democrat leaders in Lansing called it fiscally irresponsible and unsustainable. Nesbitt said that the money belongs to taxpayers. Lowering the income tax and providing a child tax credit will save an average family of four around $1,200 each year. That's not money that you sneeze at, but at the same time, what do you do with that revenue then? I understand you got a surplus, but what happens when that surplus runs out? How do you end up making up that money? I think that's a question we need to ask ourselves too.
No, and absolutely. And I think that's what you're getting at. We're flush. The state is flush with money, and the surplus and COVID funds and all of that. And so there are a lot of priorities we could shoot money to, either this way or that way. But once that money is gone, how do you sustain that? How do you keep that going? We have the money now, and it's, I think they're all, for the most part, on the same page as far as making sure that, Michiganders get that money back, some of that surplus back, I think, but it's just how and who gets it is the big deal.
Now, I remember when they passed the budget just a while ago, they had put in some things that I think were eye-raising to Republicans, like certain like childcare funding. And a lot of this was stemming from the COVID dollars that the state received from the federal government. And one of my questions to them at the time was, okay, well, you're going to fund these things for now, but then what? Then what happens when the money runs out, when the Fed dollars, dry up? And now this stuff is on the books. And they said, well, look, I think that this will be self-funding at some point, or they drop off the books altogether. And when you're starting to cut revenues like this, I think that question continues to persist. But with that being said, I don't know a lot of people that don't want their taxes cut. I don't know that there's a lot of seniors out there that don't want their taxes cut, especially if you're on fixed income, if you get Social Security. And there's been a knock on the Republican Party for so long. Well, they don't care about old people. This to me seems like they're trying to do the senior citizen population a favor here by cutting your taxes a little bit, and the governor isn't going for it.
Well, and I think the bottom line, though, when it comes down to it, they will agree. She may veto this bill, but I think they will come down and they will agree on. They'll make a compromise. They have to. You have $7 billion surplus. The citizens should get some of that surplus, and I think they will make that decision. And it was funny. I just did a story yesterday about all the vetoes that the governor. She's like really doing a lot of vetoes, and here's another one. It is election year, and the state is flush with money, and so you can expect those kind of things. It's when the money gets tight is
And this has been one of my biggest knocks against this particular administration. They always talk about being bipartisan. They always talk about talking with the other side negotiations, but it doesn't seem like they're willing to negotiate very often. It doesn't seem like they're willing to come to the table and give and take. That is what would be required in negotiation. So, right, the Republicans and that lead the chambers are going, okay, well, if you're not going to come to us, we got to try to do something here. Yeah. So they put together a bill. She goes, nah, I'm just going to, just cross it out and puts it in the paper shredder next to her desk. Like there's really no meaningful talks going on here, it seems like. So that's the unfortunate part. Lloyd Jackson, I always appreciate the time, my friend, and insight. Thank you.
All right. Talk to you. Have a good weekend.
You do the same. WJR senior news analyst Lloyd Jackson. That's going to do it for us today. And we bring to close the first of many WJR Road Shows. It was nice to have all the folks from Ford, whether it was Lincoln Daniel Howes from the Detroit News, or one of our auto dealers over at Matt Garco at Bill Brown Ford. Thank you all so much. Sean, have a nice weekend, and have a nice weekend. And we will see you Monday right here on WJR. Have a good one. I'll talk next.
A Better Life with Dr. Sanjay Gupta.